Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Lightbringers podcast, episode 2 of season 2. Indeed, with new artwork, new awesomeness, and new expansions. Exactly. Yes, because, oh my god, blog post. There's going to be exciting stuff. We're not going to talk about it right now because we're going to do a little bit of an intro after Kroof has done their mouth warm up. You've got to do it now. No one can hear you yet, sorry. They can now. That is not... Wow, Kroof. I'm not sure what's happening anymore. Oh, okay. Got you. Excellent.
You gotta stretch the tongue, too. Because you don't want your tongue getting caught on your teeth.
Absolutely.
What? What?
Your tongue is a muscle, Jebro, and you must exercise it. You must make sure that it is flexible, it is ready to go, it's dexterous, able to articulate in the best possible way.
Hey, I also have I have a chronically small mouth, and my orthodontist makes a point to tell me that every time. So sometimes when I'm talking and doing like narration work, you'd be surprised. My tongue actually like gets caught on my teeth when I'm trying to say a word, and I'm just like, damn it.
You have a small mouth?
I mean, that's
you don't have a small mouth. What are they talking about? You have like a normal sized mouth.
I think your dentist is a liar. What a weird thing to point out every time.
Yeah,
like,
they are actually a lying person.
But I'm also 4 feet tall.
Wait, are you really that short?
No.
So much shorter than me, yay!
But I'm not sure about like height to mouth size ratio, if that's a thing. I don't think that works. I don't think that's actually a thing. A chat, is it a thing? Please tell us. Also, if you are watching on YouTube or wherever else you want to comment or you're allowed to comment, please, yes, in form of... I don't know anymore.
I feel seen in chat.
Thank you.
Yes.
Wait, what are they saying? My orthodontist makes fun of my tiny mouth too. Oh wait, really? That's really... That's
I think
awful.
it's like, it doesn't stretch, like the cheeks and everything. I don't know. They're like, wow, you have a small mouth.
I really did not realize that there was a bullying issue with orthodontists and small mouths.
Did I?
Yeah, I know.
I feel like I should be advocating for people when I go to the orthodontist now. I'm like, what's happening?
So you guys are talking about the bullying, and all I can think of is the Seinfeld episode where it's like they do things to you for that to be able to put in like Playboy magazine and like write in for it and stuff. Have you guys ever seen that Seinfeld episode?
I remember that one. Oh my god, I haven't seen that for so long.
My orthodontist says I have a small mouth, and I'm like, yep, that'd be when in the write-ins. Relating everything to Seinfeld.
See, look, Xandri's not been here for a long time and is already right back in. completely back in. Didn't take long. We're here, we're ready. We're good. Okay. Today's episode is going to be about the recent blog post that we had from Guild Wars 2. A massive blog post which talked about loads of things. But first of all, we're going to do a bit of an intro. Because why not? We didn't do that last time. Forgot. I know it can take a while sometimes, that's probably why. Also, because I was just excited about the first episode. Also, if you've been wondering about where we have been, I had some tests and exams and stuff, so sorry we had a week off. And also just busy with school and internship, so life gets in the way sometimes and sometimes things can't happen, but we're back now. And it's awesome to see everyone, as well as have you listening and in chat if you're live here, or if you're listening live on Spotify or YouTube, iTunes, whatever the hell you want to be. Kroof, tell us what you do, where you do it, and also question is... with a small mouth, what is the most difficult food to eat?
This might be the worst question yet, Jebro.
It's not a general question. It's not a general question. It's just a question to Kroof. It's not. You both don't have to answer this. This is the icebreaker before we start. Okay.
Hi everyone. I'm Kroof. I do a lot of YouTube stuff where I cover Guild Wars 2. I'm definitely going to be doing more Guild Wars 2 videos. soon. I also am here on Twitch for most of the week, Tuesday really to Saturday, and I just found a micro USB cord to plug my Xbox One controller into my PC. So I'm actually going to start playing Elden Ring soon, maybe today actually. But lovely to be back. In terms of the hardest thing to fit in my mouth.
No, I said eat food. No,
well,
I said food to eat, Croof.
You have to fit it into your mouth. What am I going to be doing? Like just eating via photosynthesis?
I think Rook's already was there for a while about what potentially was going to come up in this conversation, but.
I would say honestly, it just all
Yes, of
depends on
course.
the size. It just depends on the size from a
Okay.
burrito to a burger. If it's a bit large,
Like it
sometimes
was Jack in
you
the
gotta.
Box. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
I don't think there's one particular food that I'm like, whoa. But
Oh god. See, we don't swear much on this strip. Well, I'm normally the one who does, but like I like to keep it clean. It's all about the
Yeah, we can tell.
yeah, I mean we don't say the words. We just say the word. Like, do you know what I mean? Anyway, great answer. Thank you so much, Croof. It's always great to have you here. Rookery, tell us what you do, where you do it, and what did you have for breakfast?
Oh, that's a good, safe question.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Rookery. Previously Bird of Chess, but you can call me Rook. You can find me on Twitch, on YouTube now, Twitter, Instagram, many places here on the internet, but wherever I am usually playing MMOs, particularly Final Fantasy XIV and Guild Wars 2. I am very much about, I think rediscovering the love that we have for games, sometimes in a space or internet that wants to just drain you of that. And I love hearing about what is hard for Curve to fit in their mouth. So those are really my two interests, and we will be discussing this aggressively in the coming weeks on my channels, but you can also find all of other content there, lore content, and my full playthrough of End of Dragons that's going to be going up very soon, starting this week. Did I say everything else? Oh, and I had a bagel with cream cheese for breakfast. It was not hard to fit in my mouth. It was fine.
Was it
It was
toasted
doable.
or was
that
it just
sounds
like?
so good.
It was toasted, and it was a whole wheat everything bagel. That's me trying to be healthy. And then I slathered it in so much cream cheese that I think any health benefits were completely eradicated. So,
Was there
whole
like
wheat's good.
onion in the cream cheese though, or something like that?
oh, like a flavored. I normally do chive cream cheese.
Well, see, yeah, that's like a vegetable.
Yeah, see, easy veggies.
What, the flavor of it? That don't count.
There are tiny little bits of chive in it. That's
Okay.
vegetables, and
Alright.
I ate them.
The monument of health.
And the
Yeah.
bagel had everything. So
Oh,
Exactly.
this-
Thank you, Zandri.
Yeah. Okay, fine.
It had fruits. No, that would be.
Okay.
I love
Bagel's good. I may need to get some bagel. And last but certainly not least, Xandri is back. How are you? Tell us all the things. What you do, where you do it, and also, what do you do when you have no power for 2 days to entertain yourself? That's your question.
okay. So hi, I'm Xandri. I've been playing. I actually just had my 1-year anniversary for Guild Wars 2, which was pretty incredible. But I
cool.
stream, do YouTube content, and I also do social media marketing and management as well for my own business. Actually going to be opening up a game shop as well. So we're working on getting a brick and mortar store where we're going to do like used games and then move into like Magic the Gathering stuff, which will be a lot of fun. But
That's
content creation,
awesome. That's so
and
cool.
that's my full-time thing. But recently, yes, I have had some time off because of didn't have any power for over 24 hours and was like pretty much completely at home. The first day I slept a lot, because for anyone who doesn't know, I am actually expecting. I'll be having a baby. Well, supposed to be next month, but it could pretty much be like any time, because he's like right there. It's Easter weekend. April 16th is my due date, so...
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's cool.
Baby too.
So when the whole thing happened with the power outage, it made it so that like we couldn't use our phones and we couldn't leave. and I was so irritated that it like took a lot out of me. So after like throwing a fit, I slept for like a really long time. But after that, we drove into town, and I ended up still just working. So once the plow went by, did everything that I could from a diner / coffee shop. And then when we got back here yesterday, when we still didn't have power, we actually played a ton of Magic the Gathering, and we had candles lit up.
Nice.
We did that, and then we were going to do some deck building, but we didn't get a chance. So pretty much just card games and whatnot. It wasn't as bad once I got over it.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Yeah, it's just like the realization, remembering that you don't have things like Twitter and all the things. And when you're a content creator, that's something you kind of monitor a little bit.
Right. And it was funny too, because we finally got into town where I had cell service, and I told my family, and I'm like, just in case like you guys have been trying to get a hold of me, like this is what's happened, so I haven't had cell service. And they're like, oh, we weren't trying to get a hold of you, but that's good to know. And I'm sitting here going, I could have had a baby. Like I could have gone.
Yeah, right. Hi, family. I expected you to come out here again.
Yeah, right?
Bring me the figs.
So everything's good now. Everything's better. And yeah, still doing the things full time and having fun.
Awesome.
Yay. And big congrats on all your news. It's so exciting.
It is. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, wow, a store as well. And a kid.
Yeah.
That's a lot of new starts. That is really exciting. That's awesome.
It is a lot.
Yeah, but it's
Very
exciting. It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good things. I'm excited for you. Awesome. Okay, well, everyone in the chat who is excited about and actually chat, tell us what you are most excited about in terms of just main things that kind of came out of the blog post. We'll probably go over the bits and bobs, but we're going to go over to it now and have a look because I'm excited. So, ArenaNet Studio update, the future of Guild Wars 2. Wow. Holy, everyone, they need like, wow. What was that?
Whoa.
Wow.
Wow.
No, you have to do that. Wow.
That's it, exactly.
Wow.
Thank you. I was right. I was like, someone's gonna do it, right?
Wow. Was that what you wanted? Do we need another take, Jebro, or do you feel like that was
it's
good?
the guy. It's the meme. It's the wow meme. I was trying to get going, but it didn't work. Okay, so.
Wow.
First of all, I hope everyone's enjoying Ender Dragons. Just a general thing. There was an expansion that came out, pretty recently, like 3 weeks ago. And just to say, we're not skipping talking about Ender Dragons. There was just this blog post that came out, which is pretty important, and it talks about the future of the game. So if you really wanted to have us talk about Ender Dragons and you were excited to listen to that, that probably isn't going to happen today. So I'm sorry, but there is many more podcasts in the future. It's not a WoW meme. It's a Guild Wars 2 meme. Oh, I get it. I'm good at jokes. That's funny. And that was very good, wasn't it?
That was clever.
Okay, so we got some awesome readers, people that can read here. If anyone wants to take the first, and I'm not like no one has to read at all. But if someone wants to take the first, what we can do is we're going to read the whole thing and we're going to go through it. Yes, it's long, but we're also going to have a podcast around it and we're going to stop. So it's not just going to be us reading for like 20 minutes. Don't worry.
I like that Jebro's trying to like talk us all into this as though like,
No.
like, and all of you are going to read it. It's going to be so fun.
You don't all have to read it. Xandri doesn't have to read it. Creep doesn't have to read it.
When is chat going to read it?
I mean...
Well,
yeah.
all right.
That's true.
Chat,
I'll do
can
the
you come
first bit. I'll do the first bit because it's just an intro. Okay. How's that
Jebro,
sound?
the sheer amount of times you've cleared your throat at this point. I'm
getting a cough. I'm sorry.
Oh no.
Like when you're ready to like present in front of the class and you're like,
yeah.
Do you not do that? Do you not do that when you're streaming or anything?
Sometimes.
No.
It's actually better not to clear your voice for the health of your vocal cords.
Yeah.
I don't do
It's
it every
rough on
day.
them,
It's because of
Jebro.
the coffee.
Sure.
Hey Guild Wars 2
ahead.
community. It's JT and Colin Johansson here. Hello Colin and JT, how you doing? The studio leadership team at ArenaNet. Ooh, not just one person, it's two now, don't forget. The past few weeks have been wild. Ooh. And we're absolutely humbled by the reception to Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons. The development team poured their hearts and souls into this expansion, which was developed from start to finish during one of the most challenging periods in our lives. Yes, absolutely. We cannot thank the team enough for their hard work and attention to detail and the dedication to the studio, the franchise, and our fans. We also want to extend the same gratitude to you, our community. We're here today because of you and your trust, support, and also lots of money that you spend on the game. They didn't say that in the post. I just said it extra. While the end of the Elder Dragon cycle might seem like a natural moment to start winding things down, we're happy to say loudly and emphatically that Guild Wars 2 has a bright future ahead of it. Cheers come from the stadiums, etc. Last July, we said that we were making big changes at the studio that are necessary to make our ambitious goals a reality. Since then, we've strengthened our leadership team, worked to improve our communication with all of you, and shipped the third expansion for Guild Wars 2. We're also invested in major foundational long-term projects to ensure the game's future. Like DirectX 11, the Legendary Armory, and World v World restructuring. This long-term focus is paying off. We're seeing incredible growth in the community. In fact, the number of active Guild Wars 2 players, because this is where we go start talking, has more than doubled. That more than doubled. That's not doubled. That's more than doubled. Almost tripled, maybe. Over the last 3 years, this growth has helped Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons outsell the previous expansion. Okay? So there's some big words in apparently, like I'll say. How we proceed from here, how we continue this momentum into the future is something we've been spending a lot of time thinking about. Today we're ready to talk about the next phase. However, the details are best for the Guild Wars 2 leadership team to provide for those of you who aren't familiar with them. We'll start with introduction. Okay, so this first of all talk. What did you first see when they said it's basically like double the amount of players and it's outsold Path of Fire? Like, what were the first things everyone was thinking? We were excited. Just general thoughts. I mean, I know it's not a lot to talk about, first of all, but still.
Excited that they actually mentioned it, like the difference, because I feel like a lot of it's like everyone knows that the population's been steady, or else they wouldn't put out any more content. But the fact that they actually flexed a little bit and said these are how many people we have playing now, or like gave a sort of a number, especially after people being confused about launch with the mega servers and how big the maps are, and not seeing certain people, especially when you're new, is like, no, they're there. It's just everything had to be condensed, and where, you know, it's double or triple. And I had a lot of people that were asking about like viewership on Twitch correlating with it, and they're like, well, Twitch hasn't gotten very much of an increase from this recently, now that things have started to die down and a lot of streamers are getting past the story portions. And so they're like, I guess they didn't get a lot of new people and it didn't really work. And it's like, that doesn't necessarily correlate to what the actual population is. So I was really excited that they said this, and I keep pointing people to it. So
when you came, when this is it's very good that you're here today. Obviously, just normally, but like because you're, like you said, you know, it's your first year of Guild Wars 2. You know, that's a big deal. And there's loads of points today where your feedback is going to be really, really great. But in terms of Twitch, you're talking, that's interesting. You didn't really think about that. When you came like a year ago and you started on Twitch and the Guild Wars 2 directory, like what were your feelings about it? Because I know we talked about this in the podcast you were in before, funnily enough, but like just the amount of people and what that kind of gives you as a first impression, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess then it was right after, like, I had gone from burning myself out on 14, which I absolutely still love, but I came over to Guild Wars 2, and at the time, because the new expansion for 14 hadn't come out yet, the viewership was very comparable. I don't know if Rookie will agree with me, but it felt like for Guild Wars 2, it was like 1K to 2K, maybe 3K max, and like 14 was probably 5, maybe 7 at the time. And it seemed niche, but not as niche as an MMO could be. I feel like they're like, you know, SWTOR was really small. RuneScape has like those couple of streamers that everyone knows that are vets, but the viewership as a whole for the category is still quite small, even if you get new people every day. I feel like the promotion that they've done recently, getting people like Lucky Ghost, Baggins TV, and a couple of others who are actually staying, is helping. But it's also a hard like way to compare the population to what's actually in game, because people are like, well, nobody's watching it, so nobody's playing it, and it's like, well, that's not necessarily true. And it's not that nobody is watching it, it's just it is more niche than some other MMOs, and that's fine.
People forget that like Twitch viewership is not a direct reflection of an actual game. You know what I mean? Like the thing is that there are like very different populations that affect things like viewership on Twitch, right? Some of the games that have the, you would say, technically largest number of viewers watching it at any given time are oftentimes games that particularly appeal to like a younger male demographic, like people who may have a lot of time to watch and to see. Things like Fortnite, for example, or like you see a lot of new game release stuff or new game news stuff, or channels that might be doing something like an esports event, or like, so again, there are these specific areas in which certain groups and demographics use Twitch or might be more versed in using Twitch. And it was funny because when I first started doing MMOs, I started out as a competitive Overwatch player, funnily enough. And, you know, we did that. That was the thing that happened. And I really wanted to play MMOs. And at the time, I even remember like my partner who had kind of introduced me to Twitch in many ways said like, nobody watches MMOs on Twitch, so like if you stream an MMO, it probably won't go anywhere. And like they didn't mean it in a way that was like, you know, super discouraging. Of course they were like, you know, play whatever you want and like see what you can do. And it ended up being the best choice I ever made. But we're seeing that viewership on Twitch for MMOs in particular is very much a thing that can be hit or miss. And certain games have learned how to incentivize their communities in a much more direct, aggressive way, like ESO, in the way that they encourage like various, you know, components and all kinds of stuff and events and drops and you know, the way that they promote streaming as well as like a major component of how you interact with the game and its community, right? Versus other games like 14 that have kind of, they don't 14 is a massive game. It has like one of the biggest populations, and yet it's funny because when you actually look at a lot of the numbers, like you were pointing out, Sandry, it's fairly comparable overall. Of course there are spikes and things like that, and many people that have been coming to the game recently, but like even for that scale of game, the viewership is lower than you would expect it to be. So you cannot make these correlations specifically between like the amount of people playing a game and the amount of people that play that game that are tuned into or actively use something like Twitch. There's a lot of different reasons that they might not be viewing. And I always found that Guild Wars 2, while maybe was a little more niche in a sense, it had great engagement, an active community, people that were interested in watching and supporting that kind of content and seeing it grow. So yeah, I was happy to stick with it when I first started trying it out, you know?
Yeah, same.
Cool.
And that's why I was so excited that they posted that, because I'm like, oh, they're letting people know finally. Like, we've gotten a much bigger influx than we had before. Because it was always like, there wasn't an issue. They didn't necessarily have to promote more as much as we'd like to see them take the leap. And they don't necessarily have to do certain things because they've always just, it's worked for them. Like, they've had the... But now they're even talking about, well, now we're taking this leap. And it's like, yes! Yeah. Because as a community, that's what we want to see.
It is. Okay. that was almost sure. I'm not sure if Rook said much about the numbers specifically or the outselling, but...
Well, for the outselling and just the overall increase, I think it's a great positive to at least speak on, but we don't really have numbers, like hard numbers, so that could just be from like the very lowest point that they had, and then of course with expansions you tend to see rises, and I also think another factor with this expansion as opposed to Path of Fires was a much longer marketing cycle. Path of Fire had like a month of very minimal marketing before the expansion launched, so it does make sense as to why it has increased, and I think that is just a positive in and of itself. You don't necessarily need the numbers as long as there is some sort of positive growth. That is the important thing. But yeah, I wasn't necessarily blown away. I am wondering, in terms of the sales from End of Dragons to Path of Fire, does that mean like the first week of sales, or does that mean like End of Dragons
the first couple of weeks, yeah.
like fully outsold the entire history of Path of Fire?
It would probably be pre-orders / like from maybe when they announced. But that's interesting because they would have to they did pre-orders. I can't remember where they did pre-orders for End of Dragons compared to Path of Fire, and whether or not they just did a similar period of time, because it could have been like, it would have been different. I don't think it would have been the same. So yeah, it's very, ambiguous. Ambiguous, I don't know if that's the right word, but like very like, yeah, it's open to interpretation, I guess. But I think what you say I think what I was getting from what you said as well is that marketing is kind of different as well. So that was just like a growth place, which was definitely good, because Path of Fire didn't have any. You can't say it was bad because it just didn't have any. So it's
it just simply didn't show up.
It just wasn't there, and it was just random. There were banners. I think they had some. Didn't they have some?
Remember the banner that was just like, ah!
Yeah!
My sugar cube.
Oh my lord. And
honestly, as we talk about the marketing,
so you're gonna have to explain that to me.
There was a banner on. Okay, so there was a very infamous ad that they were doing for marketing that showed up across all like Google searches and stuff, and it was just like a picture of a Sylvari on a Springer, and I think the quote was just A-H-H-H or like A period unquote sugar cube. And despite I think we've mentioned this before, like we have our own opinions about the marketing stuff that we see, but it's also like, it's great because it is iconic, but maybe for not the right reason, if you know it. It's kind of like the taxi cab situation where you're like, oh god, well that was a choice, but it definitely made a mark.
Yeah, I think overall this is exciting, right? This is great news. It's also nice just to hear that over the last 3 years, we've seen this growth for so many reasons, like everybody is pointing out, because I do think that was maybe one of the periods of time that was the most uncertain with Guild Wars 2. We really weren't sure what was going to happen with the future. We really weren't sure exactly what was going to be going on with, like, are we getting a new X-Pack, or is it just going to be a saga? And the game has always done what it does well. Living Season 4 for me was a real narrative high point in a lot of ways, and again, that followed Path of Fire. So it's one of those things where I think that period of tumultuousness, and then including a pandemic to encompass this period of growth, is really great to see, because there's a lot to fall in love with Guild Wars 2, and I really do think that it has a place within the lineup of current MMOs that can be put forth even more strongly than we see a lot. And a lot of it has been because of some of maybe those missteps in, the marketing and other stuff like that. But we're seeing more people now like try it out, return to it, talk about it, than I have seen probably in like, gosh, I don't know, the 5 years-ish that I've played, like, which is so great, because I think people are starting to realize, like, wow, this does have a lot to offer. And so to get confirmation of that in a way that, like, anytime anybody wants to try to disparage, I think the growth that it has and the place that it has in modern MMOs, to be able to just be like, hey, no, actually, a lot of people are playing this, and more people than even previously. So, like, this is a great jumping off point for us to just keep growing more.
Great stuff. Yeah, bang on, basically.
The ad is up. It's fantastic. I never got a chance to see this.
Thank you, Gears to Gnomes. Gears to Gnomes, the graphic legend, by the way. Thank you again for the awesome work you did on the Lightbringers overlay.
Who is Sugar Cube?
What's happening here?
No idea.
This person is a legend. They have to come forward.
This just makes no sense. I don't understand what's happening. Are they trying to say in this advertisement that the name of the rabbit is Sugar Cube? Is this just the quote in response to the Springers from somebody on Twitter? Is this?
I think so.
The name is Sugar Cube?
I think
is that
so.
why there's emoji?
I don't know.
Like, even if they had put something like, the reviews are in, Sugar Cube on Twitter says, ah! Like, but even then,
like, look how cute it is, or like, it's a huge bunny that's gonna like eat people. Oh, speaking of which, I saw the bunny's RP walk today. I didn't know that mounts had RP walks.
They do.
Yeah.
The bunny is scary,
I've not
especially
seen
like
the bunny one, actually.
like oh. And I'm sitting here going, that thing is after you, like veggies.
Oh Lord, he coming.
Yeah, this is just like, I mean, honestly, we have talked about even some of the, I think the high points of marketing for this current expansion with the End of Dragons. We've talked about some of the low points, but honestly, when you look at how far we've come from this, leagues ahead, because this just tells you nothing about the context. It tells you nothing even about the fact that mounts are a brand new feature, like expansion feature that are coming in Path of Fire.
It kind of just looks like someone's humping the back of a rabbit while screaming "ah." In all honesty, I mean, if you're gonna be honest, like that's kind of just what it looks like.
But
This is an amazing rabbit,
say,
and I like sugar cubes.
I must say though, it really does capture that like comical aspect of Guild Wars 2, where like this feels like the vibe with the community sometimes, where it's just like it doesn't make sense. It's just comical.
I mean, if you've been here, you've been
It's
here. This is a prime example of that.
Yeah. So in an aspect, I do kind of like love it, but also it could have been better.
Ukon says in chat, but it does say free, has 3 exclamation marks and 4 party emojis. So true. It is very much like a symbol of. Anyway, let's go. Thank you, Gears, as well for that.
But like, yes, this so clearly illustrates again, like even just this post, the context they're giving us, the communication they're giving us, it's so great. And yeah, this was an exciting thing to see, that like, especially during a period where many people thought like, let's just be completely honest, people weren't sure if there would ever be another expansion or how much longer the game would last. Like, to see that they have talked about how there has still been growth and they have come out with the best expansion to date, it's like, it's just a great time to be in Guild Wars 2, you know? It's awesome. So this was really exciting to see.
It is nice to kind of just think about the past and where we are now. And I think the one thing earlier in the document as well is the leadership up at the top is now 2 people rather than 1. Whereas I think Mike O'Brien had definitely, his time was up. I think like he was very old school, and like respect to him for being the work he's done in the past, but wasn't the person for the future. And I think this Colin and JT is definitely at the top wise. But it does... There is this line now between like leadership and then director, and from this article, I got vibes of like, I feel like there's good. I wonder if they're going to revisit those projects. That's what I was thinking. I was like, I wonder if with the success, you never know, or maybe they learned their lesson and now it's just like focus on one thing. Anyway, that's another conversation. Although, did anyone else get those vibes?
It definitely crossed my mind, and I think it's always smart for game companies to branch out into other IPs, and if they can economically sustain themselves and make that cost, go for it, you know? But it all just depends on what the studio wants to do in terms of, you know, comfort with one thing, and it is always a risk to branch out, but sometimes risk is worth taking, but, you know, they might not necessarily be in that position right now, but...
Yeah.
You know.
The thing that I thought first was just the amount of structure that there could possibly be from this, especially with having like those really dedicated positions, and then obviously reading down. Oh wait, but afterwards it's like, yes, they are doing that. Like there is going to be more scheduling. There is going to be more, you know, of communication for this schedule with people, not just about guild chats, but about like actual updates to the game and patches and things like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was the first thing I thought, and then it actually came true, and I was like, oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, whether or not they're working on another title, you know, it's kind of tough, right? Because there has been a little bit of talk even about, you know, we may have gotten End of Dragons because the studio decided to consolidate and focus and, you know, really try to support an expansion at a very high level with it. Which really is like, we have an incredible team. They do phenomenal work. They do really unique stuff in the MMO genre. But it has always felt like given how accessible they make this game, you know, when you compare it to other companies that have like 1 million titles and subscription and buy to play and all these other alternative revenue models and all this other stuff under their belt, it's, you know, it's you just want them to succeed. Like, you want them to have the support and the team and the stuff that they need to be able to juggle these projects. Even when we see stuff like the ending of the Iceberg Saga, where you can absolutely see the incredible work that this team was going to bring, but then having to juggle expansion release and, you know, what they were trying to do with Living Season, clearly, like, there towards the end was a bit of strain. And every game will have some of that to some degree, but like, whether or not they're working on a new project, I think even just hearing about the leadership, the solidifying of leadership, people being moved into places that obviously do seem to have a very good vision for the game, that, you know, are in touch with the community and trying to, you know, bridge the gap and do all these things that they've been meaning to do and take real action and make structures for that. Like, it makes me so hopeful that the team is going to continue getting the support, leadership, structure, and, you know, even additional staff that they need to juggle the ambitious goals that they have for really letting Guild Wars 2, like, truly come into its own as the game we all know it can be, and oftentimes see that it is, because it has phenomenal stuff in it. So I was really hopeful because of that.
Okay. Well, I will just finish off this one bit, actually. I'll just finish this off because we had a bit of a break, and I might as well finish this off, and you can read the more fun, like the really fun bits. Although the main reason is that I want to read this is because this is kind of very, very cool, because I've known Josh for a long time. Okay, but first of all, there is Amy. They're introducing basically two pretty high up people. Amy Liu is our executive producer. She's responsible for the how and when of Guild Wars 2 development. She started as a game master and community manager for NCSoft in 2004, like 18 years ago, and spent 5 years working across NCSoft products. She joined ArenaNet for Guild Wars 2's launch in 2012 and has led many projects and expansions and coordinated scheduling, staffing, resourcing, and project management while solving challenges at the studio level. Amy was also instrumental in helping ArenaNet's audio department become the incredible triumph it is today. It's good to have some mention of Amy because, like, I don't feel like they've been mentioned that much in the past. Like, honestly, I just don't think they have. So it's really cool to, like, have that introduction and be like, you know what, we've got two people leadership team wise up at the top. A game director also needs a producer. Like, producer's pretty damn important, and it signifies this is like a partnership again. So I kind of like that. That's pretty cool. Good stuff. And then Josh Grouch Davis, this man, is taking on the role of game director. He's already been promoted. Like, he's already been promoted. He's only been back for like 6 months or something silly. He's responsible for the what and why of Guild Wars 2 development. He started as a Guild Wars 2 community content creator and joined the dev team in 2013. And I'm going to bring you a bit of a blast from the past in a minute. Allowing us to continue a long tradition of recruiting team members from our passionate player community. Like Ruby was a reviewer before they started ArenaNet and used to do stuff on. I used to watch a podcast every week leading up to Guild Wars 2 launch. It was called. Someone in the chat will remember if it's a. But it was a great, and Ruby was on there sometimes with Richie, with Bogart, and some other like big like MMO peeps at the time. And then Ruby went as well. So Josh returned to ArenaNet in early 2021 as the head of live operations for Guild Wars 2. If you don't know, Josh, Colin, and a bunch of ArenaNet staff left to go to Amazon Game Studios. They made the game Crucible. Amazon messed it up. Not them, but Amazon were just like, release it and everything else. The game was fantastic. I love that thing with every piece of my soul. And then they rejoined ArenaNet, and lots of changes happened since. He was head of live operation for Guild Wars 2 and has helped contribute to the growth and improvements to communication that we've seen in the past year between Amy and Josh. The rest of the development team, Guild Wars 2, is in great hands. You'll be hearing a lot more from them going forward, while we, Colin and JT, focus on operations and high-level leadership of the studio. And then they're going to talk about the game and whatnot. But first of all, like, what do you think about the whole... there's not much to talk about, but, like, that's a big promotion for Grouch already. I mean, he's now game director, and That is just amazing. I'm so happy for them.
Yeah, I love seeing people get their flowers, get their praise. It's always nice to show people the love and the support for what they have done, especially with End of Dragons being so great. And then, of course, the communication, like these individuals are really propelling Guild Wars 2 into the future. So it's always nice to hear.
Yeah, it's exciting. And like Josh even saying, I don't remember if it was in the interview that he did, but he was like, I started out as a content creator and now I am the director of the game, like the game that I love. And, he was just like, let that be, something that, everybody else, you can realize that even if you're like starting out as a content creator, that like, you can have these big dreams about getting involved in the industry because you matter too. And personally, I found that so inspirational, but I think it also shows why ArenaNet does have a connection to the players in a way that, like, even in those periods where communication was kind of rough, again, like, this studio feels very one-on-one in a way that many others don't. You might have like a couple iconic people that you see or that kind of are out there on the live casts or stuff like that, but Guild Wars 2 really does feel like a lot of the time its staff, its devs, even some who hang out here, Ruby, that there is like a connection and a very down to earth kind of vibe with them,
for sure.
And how they interact with other people, and like you can see that they don't consider themselves like separate and above the community. They consider themselves a part of the community, and many of them have roots in the community and creating for this game, which is just like, you love to see it. It just makes me so happy.
I mean, Vosberg is a really, really good example of that, because Vosberg is like he was big. He was just a German Korean, like not just, but like he was. I remember I used to commentate with Vosberg back in the day. Like, he used to come on ESL EU casts with me and shoutcast that. And like, his artwork is just phenomenal, and now he's got to a point where he's designing like art in the game, like, I mean, do you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of ridiculous. And just by being part of the the ArenaNet partner program as well, and like just doing this as part of his work, and then intricate, like putting his hobby and his work together, and then they've become one thing, and he can still enjoy the game for what it is as well. And it's just amazing. Like, it really is, like Rick said, you can really, you got to just work smart and work, you can work hard as well, but like, you can really apply yourself. You can get into these positions. And this is what, if you're watching this on YouTube or Twitch right now, and the reason everyone might be slightly confused as to what, Josh Grouch is in the middle at the top, and this is a show they used to do. Now, when you can also see the name that flashes up of the actual show as well, which is called State of the Game, and that will come into play later, because I feel like this is a shout back right to this. That probably Josh maybe doesn't even realize, maybe they don't even realize it, but this is the first content he used to make, which was a PvP show talking about the updates to the balance and whatnot, and they used to have this show quite regularly. John Chap is like up on the top left, used to work for Arena. He worked on Crucible with Grouch and Colin and loads of other people, John Peters, etc., etc. And they used to come onto this show, and they used to come and talk about balance. And the funny thing is, someone else took over the show because Grouch was then employed, and then Grouch is in like the dev window, and then everyone's just like, what? Grouch is working for Arena there now? I remember watching this show, and I was just like, that's so happy for him. So yeah, it was definitely an awesome moment back then, and it's just awesome. Like, he gave me a lot of opportunities personally as a content creator, being able to go to all the different countries I went to and commentate the game, as well as being able to go to the Heart of Thorns launch and be on the panel for that, and just doing loads of stuff in the past. So I owe him a lot personally, actually. So, and he's just a good guy as well. So I'm so happy for him. And yes, I'm going to celebrate this mofo until the cows come home, because he deserves it. And he is the best person for this spot at the moment. Absolutely. And I'm flipping excited.
It really shows like how much passion that all of the devs have for this game, because you could like check out other MMOs, and especially larger MMOs, just going off of what Rook said, and it's like half of the people who work on their game don't even play their game.
It's so true. It's so true.
And so, like, just seeing that with Guild Chat and seeing people actually discuss things that are happening in the game by showing you the gameplay on their actual characters is really cool to begin with. And then having this And then the other thing that is really cool, especially hiring people from the community to be able to have this passion as well, is the narrative mentorship is going on right now. And you can sign up for that.
Yeah.
And there are people who can, get picked from that to actually work there. So it's a really neat way to integrate the community and to have that down-to-earth feeling. But it's also like they actually play their game. Like they've seen the bugs because they've actually come into contact with the bugs. So I think that's just awesome as well.
And the fact you can see them in game with the ArenaNet tag, because they don't have to have that. I think they have to have it if they do. So I think there's a reason they have to have it if they want to get something specific. I can't remember what the main deal with it is, but they've told loads of people this isn't an NDA thing. Don't worry, it's okay. This is something that they've talked about. But yeah, you're completely right. But they're in the game as well, and you can see them, and it can be anyone, They could be working on any part of the game. They might not even be working on the actual game specifically, but they might be in marketing, whatever. So it's always nice to see peeps. But yeah, this was the episode where Josh was in the field. Look at him. Look, he's so young. Look at him, Josh. It's so cute. Oh, amazing. Anyway, sorry. That's my reminiscing of the old times. So, who would like to read the next session? You do not have to. Oh. It's 22. It's 2022 and beyond, and I will just say I'll butt in when I feel like we should talk about something.
Take it away, Rook.
Oh, thanks, crew.
You got this.
Okay, thank you. Hi all, Josh and Amy here. We're so excited to talk about what's on the horizon for Guild Wars 2. Grab a snack, get comfortable, and settle in for a long one. When we set out to build our plans for 2022 and beyond, we spent considerable time looking back on the last 10 years of the game's history, taking stock of where we succeeded and where we fell short. We reviewed player and press feedback, spoke to those at the studio who were here for the highs and lows, and dug into the mountains of data covering the span of the game's operation. At the end of the process, it was clear that there were two key areas we knew we needed to address as part of our plans. First, we need to prioritize delivering consistent updates for our players. The release of Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons and the resolution of a story arc that was 10 years in the making feels like a fitting time to reevaluate the overall Guild Wars 2 experience, specifically how we provide regular content updates to our players and what those updates contain. This means continuing to tell compelling stories that expand the world of Tyria while providing a better experience for those who enjoy game modes such as World vs. World, Player vs. Player, and endgame group content. Second, it's important that our plans allow our team to maintain a healthy work-life balance. We've always believed that our top priority is the health and well-being of our employees, and we're more committed to that now than ever. This will help ensure that the exceptional team behind the Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons expansion will continue to be happy at ArenaNet for years to come. Our work on this front will largely be invisible to you, and will mostly focus on improving our planning and day-to-day development processes. Now, let's shift gears and talk about what the future holds.
Okay.
Did you want to talk about it?
Yeah, we might as well. I mean, there's still quite a lot in there. I've written a couple of bits and bobs. First of all, consistent updates. So there was the quote there. This means continuing to tell compelling stories that expand the world of Tyria while providing a better experience for those who enjoy the game. Modes such as World v World, PvP, and endgame content. Okay. So there's loads in there. Is there anything anyone wants to pick up on in there? Or was it just fairly we're working on the game? No Sherlock, I don't know.
Hey, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I actually think this is really important. Like, to be honest, I think this is a really important thing to say. Because one of the big problems, which again, I think has felt like something, maybe it was leadership, maybe it was planning. Oftentimes it felt like, maybe because of the size of the team or the support or whatever it was, right? That in order to get new content for a specific thing that you love, like World versus World, PvP, endgame group content, right? You had to almost trade off, okay, well, we get a new fractal, but that means that we won't get this, this, or this. And we don't know when we might get that, but we hope. Okay, so we get this new thing, but we don't know when or if we'll ever get a raid again. Okay, well, what about this new thing? Like, so it's something that has never to me felt like, I mean, again, it doesn't break my experience of this game because I love the variety of content that it offers. But when you compared it to other games where people like come into your chat or ask that first time, well, what about updates? What about endgame content? When will those cycles happen? Will I regularly get new stuff to do in the game? It always did kind of create this problem where I had to a lot of times just go, it's kind of like Warframe in that like you might get something new eventually, and then maybe another time you'll get like, you know, I mean, of course we would always get story, we would always get these other things, but you could tell that there was something different about their release cycles in some way. I don't know exactly what that is, but the impression I always got was that because they were working with a small limited team and because they don't again have the massive financial support of other studios, it oftentimes meant that they had to focus on a thing, polishing it, getting it, releasing it, and then just maintaining the general flow of the narrative, maps, and other baseline content in the game, right? Which we also see with Warframe, which has a very similar revenue model. So to actually get this and to hear them say, we realize that compared to many other modern MMOs, not having a regular release cycle, not having our player base know exactly what is coming when is a problem. And so we are dedicated to figuring out how to get this more reliable for players and to also make sure that everybody is getting the type of content they expect from MMOs. And that's kind of huge. It seems like a no-brainer, but it's kind of huge.
Yeah, it was actually funny because when I started last year, I had made a video saying, like, these are the things that I wish I could see, where it's like, I wish that they had consistent updates like other games I had seen so that you knew and you could prepare and you could take, you know, obviously the game is so, like, if you want to be casual or you want to have alts and it's so friendly for these things that you can take time off and do other things and know when you can come back. And not just for Living World, but also for all of these other updates and such. And people were like, well, they have a small dev team, and I mean, I'm happy because
Is that what people said?
Yeah. And people were like, well,
What's small?
What was it? Well, they're working on things, and when it's done, it will be done. And I'm like, yeah. I'm not saying that I don't want a polished product. I'm saying that it would be nice to actually have the roadmaps that they've been providing. So this for me was huge. I read this and I actually did a video on this and I was like, I'm so excited because this is what I said I wanted to begin with. You know, rather than just being like, here's, you know, this expansion launch and here's all of these amazing features that you get. For me, I'm thinking, okay, but what about down the road? To keep people who, you know, you get that influx of player base for an expansion. You don't want that to decrease because you don't have that extra content to look forward to. Yeah. And then the other big thing is they have, people had pointed out this website that had timers for the last things. So like a timer since the last fractal, a timer since, and it's like, well, now hopefully they even said they're looking at World versus World, which people were like, hasn't been touched in however long. And it's like, so they're actually looking at all of the different game modes rather than just the story. So I thought it was really exciting.
Yeah.
It's great reassurance, but I also want to point out and praise the second part that they talk about, the work/life balance for the developers themselves.
Good
I think that's really important and something I don't see all too often from major developers and development teams. They didn't really need to tell us this, but it was, I felt special that they were like, we're going to let you in on what we're also doing behind the scenes because we are humans too, and we're trying to cultivate a very healthy work environment because healthy, happy workers hopefully translates to great products and the joy for the product as well. You want to keep people in any department or in anywhere you go in terms of, you know, jobs and professions. It should be a goal to keep people happy and fulfilled.
Yeah, and especially when we've seen so much abuse of that in the gaming industry in so many different ways recently. But like, my gosh, just this past week, I was reading about some of the terrible things that happened with the studio behind Ori. I was reading about, you know, not so long ago, the crunch and the developmental cycles for Cyberpunk. You know, there are certain things within any industry that will necessitate that there may be cycles of release in which you are working harder or working longer hours or working more. Of course, that will be a thing that is part of a lot of the experience of technology.
Unfortunately, we promote
Yeah.
that it shouldn't be a thing, but I guess with the way the world is, it's expected. Yeah.
I mean, just in general, like I live with a programmer, right? So as a baseline, right? I totally agree with you, Jeb, and you were right to call out how I was phrasing it.
Yeah.
But like as a baseline, as you get closer to like a product release, there is usually more work, just in the sense that like the sheer amount of things you are troubleshooting, the bugs you have to follow up on, the amount of communication, the amount like there is a level of that that will increase around those time periods. But at the same time, right, like you were saying, it is not about promoting that as the standard for how you should behave in gaming and treat your employees, right? Like you have to plan for it. You have to understand that that's going to be a thing. You have to offer employees the resources, time, everything that they need so that you can minimize that as much as possible and support them in any phases that are higher activity. Like it's something that this industry needs to look at, really, truly. It's pretty awful. And when you look at the actual salaries that game developers make, even compared to programmers that are doing similar work, just not in games, it's abysmal. So like, this is something that is really important, and I'm really glad they re-articulated it.
Yeah, especially with the way when they talk about mental health and the communities they appeal to and talk about and are in their game and everything else as well. There's a lot of mindfulness there of their own stuff, so that's very good.
I think it's just the timeline that's led up to this too, and when that was taking place during everything with what's going on in the world and COVID really opened people's eyes as well to noticing this. And I guess my hope is I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but on top of all of it, I'm like, I don't want a full season of Dragon Response missions ever again, especially when I'm trying to do them all to get ready for this. Like, the story for Icebrood, in my opinion, incredible. Dragon Response missions, if they weren't all the same, it would have been better, but I was trying to do them all at once to get ready for End of Dragons, so I did them all in one day, and I was like,
good lord,
never again. Hopefully there's this amount. I know what they did, I know why they had to do it, I understand completely, but it's like, hopefully there's more structure, and if they're keeping these things in mind, they won't ever have to do that again, or take people off of projects or finish projects so quickly because they're working on an expansion. So like, Icebrood wouldn't have to be rushed, or the next Living World wouldn't have to be rushed for something else because of this planning. So that's
they definitely have their process. That's for sure. They have a process of, I think, and I don't know whether or not they're going to continue doing this. I think they're going to go, maybe that if they communicate better in the way that they're doing right now, they can get to a point where they don't produce a product like DRMs, that must sound harsh, so I need to explain myself. What I mean mostly is that everyone is excited for, specifically right now, strikes, right? The people are loving strikes. Rage is still there in the background, but like strikes just more accessible for more people. And DRMs was very much like a thing that just came out of nowhere that no one asked for, and no one was excited for, and no one cared about. And then unfortunately, no one cared about them, no one was excited for them, and everyone wanted them to go away. So like, I mean, not saying everyone, I don't want to speak for the whole community, but like,
right.
Bad. I just went back and redid them for return, and I was like loving all the stuff I was returning to in Icebrood, and then I got to those DRMs and I'm like, I like the ideas in these, and then I started to actually try and play them, and I was like, this is agony. Like, this is actually terrible. Like,
to do them as well.
So hard. And I went in with like one other person that just needed to get through them. And yes, Kroof, it was like, we were in there, I don't even know how long, an hour and a half, just wailing on the same guy. It was like this never ending war of attrition. It was so terrible. Oh my God. Like, I would honestly rather see them reworked as fractals or something, because like,
that's what they should have been. That's what they should have been the whole time. They should have been short. They should have just been, instead of fractals, just fracked or something like that. It's a bit shorter, but not the entirety. It was weird. Like, the thing is, and some people in the chat genuinely, and I know you say this when I play them, and I do actually not mind a lot of what's in the DRMs, like the mechanics for the bosses. There's some great mechanics in there for some of the bosses, like going onto the ship and trying to blow up this, and try and get CC from the cannons. I can't remember where it is now.
That one.
Oh, it's a good mechanic.
One.
Yeah, but there's like masteries and stuff behind these, and you have to do something very specific. And I'm like, oh god, no, not again. And like you say, I went into some like that, and some kid's been there for like 7 hours, and the bosses are like 74% HP, and like you're just like, man, really? I mean, this has been open for a while.
I literally had someone recently who is a good friend of mine, but who has been playing both through Guild Wars 2 and Final Fantasy 14 recently for the very first time. And I literally asked them, I was like, when was the last time you played Guild Wars 2? And they went, it was the DRMs. And
oh no.
And like they just said, they were really, really hard for me to get through. And like also they were having some problems with, granted, they are playing on like a slightly unconventional laptop setup. And so like it was like just absolutely destroying them as far as graphically, but like they were just so long as well that like they just couldn't get through them. So like it has become this weird stumbling block in the story where, unless you're trying to run them for things like Return 2, people just aren't doing them. So again, like all of this to say, right? This like little tidbit about the context of development and like how they're going to be releasing things, and those like core ideas there with world versus world PvP, obviously open world and story content, and then whatever they have decided to classify as this like end game group content. I think it's nice to see that all kind of codified in a sense, and to know that like, yes, they are probably going to be focusing on releasing things that hopefully fall in line with some of that pattern, so that players just know what to expect and they don't get stuck in this like weird, very temporary side content that, is just, it has good ideas and good stuff in it, but you really can't enjoy them when you're like just trying to figure out how in the world you even proceed.
And the story is good as well.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to say about it too, is it's like, I understand the way it is, but spamming them, I actually enjoyed like the DRMs like at face value, but spamming them and having them be the exact same formula and going into the portal for every single one rather than being out in the world. And I understand why, but that kind of, it felt like it was taking away from the immersion of the rest of the story. And so I'm hoping that something like that doesn't happen again, where it's like, if they do have Cool Instincts content, that would be great. Just don't follow the same formula for like the first 3 to 4 and make it a bit different and not have to queue from a portal or whatever. I guess it was my big thing. I actually enjoyed the idea of them, and I enjoyed the dialogue and the fact that you were like sieging because things were, areas were being taken over, but it was just the same thing over and over. And so I'm hoping that all of this scheduling and structure and everything makes it so that doesn't happen again and doesn't pull people towards, End of Dragons is an incredible expansion. I understand why they needed more manpower, but Icebrood could have been that much better with what they wanted to do with the story and the gameplay as well. So hopefully it doesn't happen again.
It's weird as well because like the first DRM, which I think wasn't the first DRM, the Char one where you're escorting the Char
That was Visions of the Past.
Is that Visions? Is that technically not a DRM?
It's not technically supposed to be a strike, but it is.
Yeah,
it's a strike, right?
I actually thought that was like really cool.
It's a very long strike. I was just back in there recently, and like, I love that map. It's so cool. Like the hot springs and the like sulfur areas and the dwarven ruins, and like, I found myself wishing that like it had been integrated into an actual like open world map or something, because it actually is really good. And I think a lot of
could have been a world boss.
Like, yeah, I really like a lot of that content. I mean, like we were saying, I like a lot of that content. I don't even mind if they unify it into some kind of hub, because as we've talked about, unless we get something that's closer to like a queuing system, or like, you know, you go out into the world and you get this DRM or this strike mission or whatever, right? And then you're trying to figure out how to queue for it or like assemble a group for it. Like, I don't mind at all if, you know, they want to do more of those locational things, as long as the tools that we have to, like, again, still find those groups in an easy, fluid way that doesn't always require us to just go sit and stand outside, like, begging someone to go in with us. Like,
oh my God.
It's like, I don't mind that at all. So I think that they were trying to address that by centralizing things into hubs, right? They wanted to have like a hub where you could be and people would be around and you could technically shout out in that exact zone and be like, hey, anybody up for blank? And even if they hadn't planned on it, they might be interested, right? So like, I get the idea to consolidate, but again, like they've kind of pointed out in this portion, I think there are specific expectations that people have for types of content, and that if you are releasing all these different fragmented pieces, like we were just pointing out, it's like, what was that char mission? Was that a DRM? No, it's a vision of the past. Okay, what's a vision of the past? Okay, but then a DRM, but then we got strike missions too during Iceberg Saga. Okay, so then...
Yeah, I don't actually know what they class it specifically as. I don't think it's a strike either. I think it's just it's just an instance, which is, it's just like a story, but it feels like a strike.
They talked about it as a vision of the past was not the title of just the episode, but the title of like the story narrative system that they could go down in the future. But then they tied it to the strike mission currency reward system.
Yeah.
And it's I don't think they'll ever do Dragon Response missions ever again. I hope they don't. And I hope they restructure Visions of the Past to be a narrative tool they could use just to tell another side story instead of making it a strike. I think you gotta just do like the classics, fractals, strikes, maybe a raid if they ever want to do that again. But fractals and strikes, I think, are the two solid endgame content they should just roll with and not look back at the other things.
And you can add other stuff, I think, like, but it doesn't have to be like a dungeon specifically, like, or like, you know, something really long-winded. But like the thing is, the thing that pains me is that they had dwarfs in the DRMs, and I'm like so sad that they were in there. I was just like,
well, that's like, it would be cool if they.
So good.
A little off topic, but it would be neat if they took that Visions of the Past and they kind of did it like a time walking thing for World of Warcraft, where it's like every once in a while you got this event and you went back and you did it. If you know, you had the choice to do it if you wanted to, if you missed it when it was live, and that would hopefully, especially with it being an event, get more people that would want to do it at the same time rather than have it available all the time and be like, oh, does anybody want to help me with this achievement?
Time walking is good in WoW.
That would be cool.
Yeah, they've got, for everything that's going on at Blizzard, they do have some good systems in WoW sometimes, to be fair. You're right, that's a good one. It was helpful for me when I started playing that. Like, when I started going back, I started, the Arthas expansion, Flip. Like the second expansion for WoW, or the third one. Yeah. Wrath of Lich King, yeah. Like, I started playing that. I got the add-on, the Guild Wars 2 overlay, the UI overlay. So I was playing a World of Warcraft, but like with the Guild Wars 2 UI. And
of course.
It was just, is my stream gone down? No, it's okay. Oh no, there's frames going down. Why? Really? Okay.
Is the CPU overheating?
If you refresh, it looks pretty good. But
that looks fine on my end.
Okay.
Yeah, I was having issues this morning a little bit, but if you refresh, it does look like it's okay.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, Comcast hate me for some reason. Xfinity, maybe. And this is recorded now, and it's not live. So if you're watching this live, thank you very much. I'm sorry. Obviously, you are emotionally in pain. And I'm sure that'll be fine in the future. It'll be okay. Maybe I'll just broadcast this live as well. Who knows? We're going to go on to the next bit of the stream because I actually don't know where we got to be fair. I actually have no idea where we were. I know where we were on the article, but I don't know what we were talking about.
DRMs and combining content and the future of regular updates.
Oh yeah, there you go. So I mean,
I think we were ready to move on.
I think so. Yeah, we'd started to delve.
Exhausted the topic.
We'd started to delve into the region of
the hatred of DRMs.
Oh god, no.
I felt bad. Like once I brought it up and then saw chat, I was like, oh.
Chat actually liked them. Like chat actually liked DRMs. Yeah, I was like, oh god, wow.
I had a very specific thing about them that made them feel like I was smashing my head against a wall when I was doing them all at
you're
once.
totally right. That's the feeling that's had by people for sure when they were doing that content. So you're not wrong. Okay, Kriv, did you want to take this bit? I don't know if you wanted to.
Sure. We'll go full steam ahead, wink wink, because the next section is entitled Full Steam Ahead. So this is about the Steam release, the Guild Wars 2 community.
Trying to negate spoilers in the title before you've even read it?
No, I like subtitle. It was a punny joke, Jebro.
That was very good. That was very good, Kriv. Can you continue and I will not interrupt you?
Of course. The Guild Wars 2 community has grown quite a bit over the last few years, but it could be even bigger. Now that Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons is released, one of our top priorities as a studio is getting Guild Wars 2 ready for release on Steam and introducing the world of Tyria to an entirely new audience of gamers. You only get to launch on Steam once, and we want to make sure we do it right. Over the coming months, we'll be wrapping up work on the Steam integration, cleaning up some aspects of the early game experience, and ensuring that the game and the studio are operationally ready for a new platform launch. We're also working on getting DirectX 11 ready to exit beta and making it the default graphics setting for new users. We're not ready to commit to a hard date for Steam quite yet, but our hearts are set on launching this year. We'll keep you updated as things progress. Steam!
What?
Can we talk about that for a sec too? Because that was a little bit.
What about the jazz hands or about like?
Yeah.
Well, we can if you want. I
know.
think that people are a little bit confused about how things usually are for Steam.
Sure. Yeah.
So there were a lot of comments when people had posted this on Reddit.
Oh, really?
That were actually, yeah, that people were. Oh, wait, are you
sorry.
joking?
No. I mean, wait. I thought someone. Yeah, that was not a joke. That is like, yes, if someone posts something on Reddit, it will obviously get ripped to shit. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. But I didn't realize someone had actually, I think the what was like really was like, oh, someone posted it to Reddit. Like as in like someone, how could you, oh, it's Reddit. I forgot.
There were a couple of people that were confused about the Steam release saying, well, I don't really think it's, you know, I don't want to have to rebuy the game on Steam. Yeah. And it's like, but if you already have it, why would you? But here's the thing, like, even if you didn't understand that, it's kind of like going off of other games when they have a Steam release, they're not compatible. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you need to get the Steam version and you have to buy the expansions again. It's that you have a choice, and it will be a lot bigger for people, especially new players, to say, oh, it's on Steam now I can get it through here and possibly do like even more controller support and things like that, because I know there are add-ons. But people were confused, thinking that they would either have to buy the game twice or they were mad because they had to have one or the other. And it's like, well, that's kind of how it works, because they're not the same. It's like a different platform.
Yeah, I mean, what it is that it's the same game, but you just access it a different way. It's like ESO, right? Like, you know, Elder Scrolls Online, you can either access through Steam, which can be dodgy.
Right, exactly.
And it has, like, especially for MMOs, it's and Elder Scrolls Online, for some reason, it just breaks all the time. I don't know why. It's really weird. But like, you know, the other ones.
Yeah, and one thing I do hope that they stress, though, is that if you purchase one expansion on Steam, you are not going to be able to purchase other, unless they do it differently, but other expansions to further that game file from just the actual Guild Wars 2 website. It's like Final Fantasy 14. True. If you get it from the Final Fantasy 14 website, it's not compatible with getting it from Steam. Yeah, but they let people know that. So I don't know if that's going to be a thing. I just hope that if it is, that they let people know so people don't fall into a trap, I guess, is what I'm saying.
I think they had mentioned it when they first were talking about Steam, like a year and a half ago or so. But it has been some time, so I would like to see that reiterated, just to, you know, in case people forgot.
Yeah, and I mean, this is honestly like such a good thing. This is a great positive. Like, it's very funny to me that people I think are just so quick. It's not funny. I know it's a thing that actually happens. It happens all the time, but people are so quick to immediately jump to the like, well, they are wronging me somehow with this. And it's like, well, take a moment. Just take a moment, breathe. Now, like, what does this actually mean? This means nothing but good things for this game, honestly. Because when you think about it, everyone's always talking about how Guild Wars 2, it's like one of the least known hidden gems of the MMO market and all this kind of stuff. And a huge part of that is that other MMOs just have more visibility, right? Like ESO and Final Fantasy XIV both are on Steam. They also are on console. But like there is this whole other thing where like you're thinking about it. If an audience doesn't know to go out and look for this game, what are they going to look for? Game recommendations on other platforms, sales that might be happening that day that comes across their feed, and they're like, oh, what is this? Oh, it's an MMO? Oh, wait, is the whole base game free? Oh, is this like, it's one of those things where you need to just be seen in a lot of places. And a lot of people do use MMOs through Steam. I actually, funnily enough, I know there has been real critique of many MMO integrations on Steam, but I have all of my MMOs that are Steam compatible on Steam, including Final Fantasy XIV and ESO, and I've never had a problem with them. Like
some people
it's
don't.
just
That's true.
Yeah, like some people don't have that, but like having more options and more visibility for the game is awesome. And the big takeaway for me on this section was also the fact that they are cleaning up some parts of the early game experience. And that, obviously Living Season 1, which we'll get to, also kind of ties into this.
Yeah.
But in knowing that Steam is going to be a huge opportunity for them to introduce a giant audience to this game, I love this. Like how robust that'll be, what they're going to do, I don't know exactly, but like addressing the core game experience is something we've harped on this podcast many times.
Yes. Just a couple of times, yeah.
Just very minor. And even just to talk about Steam a little bit, I want to go back to what you said, Rook, about like the sales. In my head, I'm just like getting so happy thinking about Guild Wars 2 and how often they do sales for the expansion, like going to the Steam homepage and seeing the Guild Wars 2 banner and being like 25% off, like all these expansions. And like I think Steam is a great thing for any game, and it's been so long that Guild Wars 2 has been out that, it's nice to see it finally hit that stride of maybe increased viewership. I mean, honestly, guaranteed increased, at least eyeballs on the product.
It's free.
Yeah.
Right? It's literally free. Like, Steam is huge. Like, Steam is ridiculously huge. And if you start to see it on that list, you search for MMOs, because people will always search for MMOs. Free MMORPGs to play. They put their kids in front of it. They put their teens in front of it. They put their husband in front of it. It's just like, even if it gets 1,000 people, even if it gets 100 people, it doesn't matter. It's still going to increase the player base. It literally doesn't matter what the numbers are on Steam. I mean, obviously it does, but it's going to be a bonus. There's no negatives to this. There can't be. Right. I mean, other than production time, maybe cost, I guess that, but at the same time, I really wish I knew how that worked with Steam. I've got to look that up. But it's just good for the game. It's great for the game. Go on, sorry, Xandru. You guys have something.
No, you're fine. I was just gonna say, I did have one community member that was saying that it would be unfortunate because Steam has its own set of achievements and trophies if there would be achievements that you could only get if you did have the Steam version. So I could see that being a little oh, that stinks. But overall, I don't think it would be that big of an issue. And I also don't know if they would actually do that because ArenaNet's so good about things like that and because of their model. But that was something that someone brought up, and I was like, oh yeah, that could be a little bit of a downer. Does anyone really care about
Steam achievements? I don't care about Steam achievements. I really don't.
I'm not that huge of a Steam gamer, so I don't know a whole lot about the intricacies of it.
Called out.
I know.
Wait, you play Lost Ark, don't you? You play Lost Ark?
Yeah, occasionally. I've been so busy with Guild Wars 2. I guess I'm playing Elden Ring a bit later, so I guess I'm going to become more of a Steam gamer.
You are now a Steam gamer.
Yep.
Gamer.
It's a whole different breed. Let's go.
That's interesting about the achievements, though. Yeah, I didn't think about that because I wonder if there is a clause where you have to integrate some kind of achievements into Steam, like as using some of their basic features, like if you do have your game on Steam. So it would be interesting to see, but like you say, achievements are an intrinsic part of the game, and maybe it would encourage people to, dip into platform. Because I know when it comes out, I know I'm gonna do like a first impressions of Guild Wars 2 on Steam. We're probably all gonna do that.
Wait, that would be you had mentioned about a podcast about doing another new player experience in the future. That would be the great time, because not only is it coming on Steam, but there could be some adjustments to the new player experience.
Yeah, we'll do that for sure.
You gotta get on that, Jebro. Put a pin in that.
Don't worry. By the time that happens, though, I might have hair implants. You know what I mean? It could be way in the future of it actually happening.
Jebro got the plug.
Yeah, no, I'm not the literal plugs. Like the actual. No, I'm not gonna ever do that.
I feel pretty good. Like if they're really trying to push for this year getting it done, I feel pretty good. They've probably scoped for that. They've really thought about it and they've really planned it. There are always, of course, right now, like
unforeseen circumstances
in the world that we live in. Like we don't really know what could affect that, but I feel pretty good about this. And like having that new player experience be tweaked, like I just can't wait to see what they do with this. I was just going through Core Game again recently, and I was like, oh, even if they just like polish this little thing up or that thing up. And we even talked about like they have all that technology now for the training arenas in Xinjiang, like in each of the major cities, like slap those in there, like put something, there are a lot of small things they could do, even just increasing the stability. And like, a few of the core game instances are notoriously buggy. And like figuring out how to kind of tweak that to just make it a little more updated and things, I think would be so smart.
They should have that area in Xinjiang as the first thing you do in the game, honestly. Yeah. Like it doesn't matter if you even if you just transport into Camphor, then you can see the stuff you're going to witness, right? But like have that heart as just a training area and close it off. Hi everyone, and just have someone narrating it and saying, hello everyone, this is Guild Wars 2. Welcome to this amazing expansion. Oh, you're not there yet because you've still got to learn how the fuck to dodge. Sorry, I swore. Damn it. You guys
can edit it out, thankfully.
I actually messed up. No, I'm really not going to do that. I do not have the time. And you could just do it. It could just be an easy thing. Like I knew this would happen. I knew that we would talk about the blog post and start talking about everything. I knew it.
Yeah. There's so much.
There is so much.
It's exciting. It's really exciting.
They did expand a little bit on this as well in an interview with PC Gamer where Josh was talking about it. So he said in that back in 2014, we took a massive overhaul approach to revising the new player experience with limited success. And some may argue that the changes made back then didn't necessarily do the game any favors. Davis says that says about the improvements being planned. And then he went on to talk about this time around, we're primarily looking at making small incremental changes that add up to big improvements over time. Each of these incremental changes are being deployed as an experiment in an A/B test format, meaning we'll test the changes in the live game with a small number of players, study the results, and then decide to make the change permanent. Further iterate on it or remove it from the game. We'll be making these changes every few weeks with multiple experiments running simultaneously. We'll communicate any permanent additions to the game once they've made it through testing. And he just kind of mentioned that in the next couple months, there would be discussions about, more of those details and what exactly is going to be released, but that they're working on other minor tweaks, client performance, and smaller improvements to the core game experience. So like, I'm excited. I wasn't expecting them to do testing phases on this or anything. You know what I mean? I just figured they'd probably like streamline and then release, and that'd be it.
That's pretty interesting.
And I love the way they say it. It's just like, oh, we want to polish it. But from the way it reads, it just sounds like an overhaul. Like it sounds like there's so much that they're just like, yeah.
It's weird though. The thing about this is, I'm thinking as well, is like my first thought, I haven't read through this article yet. I just haven't had the time. And why didn't they say that in the blog post? They could have had this information in the blog post. Like it would have been great. It would have been actually amazing to have that information because. And I get trying to get people to go to, on PC Gamer and websites like promoting the game and everything else. But this is very how do we even know these things are out there for a start? You can see it promoted by other people. I know someone from our community who writes Guild Wars 2 articles, linked me theirs. Otherwise, like, how do we know these articles? Like, they could have said, I don't know if they said at the end of the blog post, you can read more at, etc., etc., etc. Did they do that? I don't think they did. Did they?
No, but I don't think it's that much of a priority at this given stage, because they probably want to make their own blog post about these incremental changes when they have a better understanding of what those actually could be, considering Steam is a little bit of a ways ahead. So this might have just been like a nice cherry on top to at least like give us some semblance of what they could be thinking about. But this also gives more reason to veterans to even maybe go back and start another character and just maybe see if they could find any differences in the new player experience and be like, oh, I don't remember that, or like, oh, that's new. I know I certainly will be going back and creating another character during the Steam release. So, and especially with these changes, even more reason for me to go back and do so.
Well, you have to with the Steam release because you can't copy your account over. So.
But I can still play on the same account.
So Andrew was talking about changes, that before, you
right? See. But I think in terms of the one major thing that I think is a necessity for them to change, it's not just these experimental incremental changes. It would actually be the way that story missions are delivered to you. I think that the way in which they changed it back in 2014 was maybe not even an improvement. It was actually a regression in the direction of the game, because now you have to wait 10 levels before you get any story chapters. And while us veterans, we might think the game goes by fast, for someone who does not know how to optimally level, it still might take a decent amount of time, and they're kind of grinding those levels to get to the next story chapter, and you don't know when that's really going to come or like how much of it is. And so I think they need to revert back to the launch system of the story instances, where you get them every 2 or 3 levels, just, you know, spread out between 1 to 80 instead of in 10 level chunks.
And even if they just put a few, like, if they want to, again, encourage people to experiment with the open world, and, you know, like, in later expansions, they structure their narrative in such a way that there's usually some point in the story where they're like, now you need to go outside and have fun, and, you know, they kind of send you off into the world like a child that's been, or a grown adult that's been in their apartment gaming for 2 weeks, where they kind of make you go out. So it's, I mean, even if they put like a few little lead-ins or little spots or little bits in, you know, where they say like, now go explore this map for whatever reason. I mean, they could do stuff like that. I think that, like you said there, Groove, that pacing is so confusing for new players, you know, like, especially because while we love this game, and I love that the core story has so many branching options, and there are real standout moments in the core story, it's not like oftentimes a lot of those instances in and of themselves, especially early on, are like so gripping that you just like, you know, you want to explore every single thing, and then you're going to get that next sweet, juicy story beat. Like, it's just not, unfortunately. So you get like this little tiny thing, and then you're going, oh, what do I do now? I guess I just run around. What's that green? Oh, I can't do that yet. Okay. And it is really jarring. It's confusing for people. I think that core game needs to have better momentum. I think it needs to have better segues segues into, that's the one. That's the one. Man. I don't know what I'm doing with segues.
Segue venues.
Segue venues.
Oh, segues sounds like a great meal. Like, it sounds like a food.
It needs to have better segues into map exploration.
I was thinking more like fondue, actually.
And it needs to educate you better. That's it. That's all I got.
Sorry. Rick's been working so hard, bless him. I'm just like, we're getting to the point with words now.
I'm sorry, let me take a second here. Segue, from the dictionary, move without interruption from one piece of music or scene to another.
Oh, okay.
What's so is it actually, the word?
Oh, I thought you were actually meant to say segue.
Well, they both work, honestly, and I was not sure that segue. I wasn't sure that segue was a real word for a second.
Did you just say the word wrong and now it works?
Oh, it's of Italian origin.
Oh, okay. So now you're speaking Italian?
Oh, my people. Yeah, okay. Makes sense.
All right.
now.
Well, my partner has come in to ask, isn't it actually pronounced segue? It is pronounced.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna be like, isn't that actually how you pronounce the word? Thank you, husband, who may not be a husband anymore. Look at your face, Rook. You are amazing. You are just amazing. Your face reaction just then was like, you're dead to me.
I have always pronounced them differently. I don't know why. Welcome to my revelation. 30 years old.
That's amazing.
That it's the same word, but I just pronounce it two different ways.
Wait until you
It was a different word.
Wait until you hit 40. You'll get that revelation as well. You realize like you've been saying double entendre wrong the whole time because it's just because of doubles and because you're English.
That's okay. I'm having enough trouble with 30 right now, so.
You're all annoying me because you're younger than me. So get off my lawn.
I turned 16 yesterday.
Why do you sound like an old lady?
Oh no, wait, you're good. You're good. For a second, I was like, you can't say that because you're not allowed to be on Twitch or stream on Twitch if you're under 17, but I don't think that's correct.
Oh yeah.
He's 13.
Probably 13 or something.
13,
Which was funny because I'm sitting here going, wait, Kroof is the youngest out of all of us.
Oh,
Yeah,
Kroof is,
True.
Baby, sweet fresh baby to this world.
Yep.
I'm almost turning 21 in April.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cute.
That's awesome.
Oh, you're so
Oh my
adorable.
God.
No.
We should all go out for drinks.
Hey,
I would love
21.
to. I wish.
Yeah,
They
remember
could do a
being
better
21.
job of the base story. But I am really interested that they are apparently doing this in phases because I wasn't expecting that this would be something that they would like test, which does, like we were saying, kind of indicates to me while they're saying small incremental changes, that does feel to me like these changes must be noticeable enough that they would test them so rigorously, you know? Like otherwise I can't imagine that if it was just something like we've made it so that all the quests happen every 2 levels, that they would test that. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know if, I don't know what we can hope for with this. Some small part of me kind of hopes that they might put in a few more like animated sequences outside of even the like, you know, the like stand there, talk in front of background, that we might see a few of those like really impactful moments.
Can
like the
everyone do their rook pose for me? Like, you know, stand in front of background? That was very good, everyone. Good
I
job.
am here to read my lines now about the story that's happening. I find it charming in some spots, but in other parts, like the loss of your mentor, like actually seeing that fully animated would be gorgeous. And if they did even like a revamp of like the final fight or like some of the instances, like I honestly think that could be great. They could even just rehash stuff. And Kroof, like you were talking about a Zaitan strike, like they could take this opportunity to try and like retool some of this stuff and then repackage it in other ways for like their own benefit. So it feels like this is a great window and an opportunity for that. And we do have Zaitan's model in here now in a different way with the final fight. Like, I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't know if any of you have any other thoughts, but
You actually did touch on something that I was mostly going to talk about when we got to season 1.
Yeah, let's talk about it then.
Okay.
Hold,
it does have to do
hold,
with strike missions.
hold your fire. Hold yourself. Hold fire. Hold fire.
Hold fire.
That's what it is. Okay, I'm watching loads of Viking stuff at the moment. I don't know why I said that.
It was like Revolutionary War? Maybe.
No, yeah, I don't
Vikings.
know. No.
Yeah. Anywho.
Vikings around the revolution?
No, like arrows. Because, like, hold fire, my brain associates it with, like, Revolutionary War, or, like, wartime and bullets. But I guess you could do it with arrows, too.
Yeah, you can do it with arrows if you want to. Don't limit yourself, you know? That's all I'm saying. Zandri's like, wow, no wonder these podcasts take 5 hours.
It reminds me of that heart that you get like halfway through the game, and then there's one that actually starts teaching you how to like attack when someone isn't blocking and everything, and then like you actually pick up a rifle and hold your fire.
Oh,
It is sort of there, but that's what it reminded me of.
I remember that. Oh, yeah. That's not in the human. I remember.
And it teaches you a gameplay mechanic that does not ever come up in the combat, but it used to.
Yeah.
You used to actually have to hold down abilities to charge them, and I think those should come back because they were fun and
so
interesting.
true.
But now.
Was that,
'Cause
wasn't that an alpha
that was a
thing,
combat.
though?
That was a combat arena to actually teach you how to block and dodge, but like, and then there was like this hold system, but then that was alpha stuff that they were doing with
I
skills.
bet they changed that
and I
into a
liked
hard,
it.
didn't they? Like it was just
Yeah.
like, this isn't working, people. Let's just turn it into a heart. Like, that is like the way to do it, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, that's a good point. Well remembered. Wow. It's a young mind there, Groof.
I've been obsessed with Guild Wars 2 since 2010, so.
And so have I, but like I'm just old and you forget stuff. That's just what happens. Still got a great hairstyle though. So let's continue.
Season 1.
Who wants to do this? Oh man, you know when I saw this artwork as well, I was like, oh.
Nostalgia bomb.
Massive nostalgia bomb as well. I was like, first I was like, what is that armor? Because it looks very cool. But like, yeah, it's just awesome. Okay.
Read Season 1 if you want to, or if you would like to, Rook.
Go for it. I'll do world versus world after. You go for it.
So, Living World Season 1 returns. My favorite. One of the most frequent pieces of feedback we hear about the new player experience is that it's hard to get into the Elder Dragon storyline without the context of what happened in Living World Season 1, content that was only available for a brief time in the earliest years of Guild Wars 2. This year, much of Living World Season 1, Scarlet's War, will be making a permanent return to Guild Wars 2 through the story journal. We'll be combining the key story moments and experiences of Living World Season 1 into 5 episodes that will be released throughout 2022. Our goal is to provide a cohesive bridge between the personal story and Living World Season 2 and give players the opportunity to earn many of the legacy achievements and rewards that have been unavailable all these years. The first episode, Flame and Frost, will release on April 19th. The season will conclude with the return of Battle for Lion's Arch, which will include a new strike mission and challenge mode. We're excited for veteran players to be able to revisit the key moments of Living World Season 1 for the first time in nearly 9 years, and to give new players a better narrative introduction into the expansion and Living World content that follows it. Living World Season 1 will be a free addition to the base game for all players, including free accounts forever.
I think that's the best part, honestly.
Yes. It's so good.
Mhm.
This is such great news.
And the way that they word it, just including free accounts forever, especially since one of the things for people, like, when you explain to people getting into the game, like, yeah, it's free to, but, free to play at first, and then it's buy to play and all of this. And then people are like, well, yeah, but then you buy the expansions, and then you get the Living World stuff. And I'm like, okay, but... So this is really cool. And I'm just really excited because I never got to take part in these things. And I watched a full, 3-hour or 4-hour long video on it to get all of the lore, which was also really good. It was really well put together. But it was better than, in my opinion, the little cinematic that they have in game. And for me, it's always like coming across something that had happened in Season 1, and I'm like, oh wait, I don't remember this happening even now. And people go, well, that's a Season 1 thing, and let me explain to you what. And I'm like, oh. I'm so excited that it's actually, and the fact that it's going to be a strike mission and a challenge mode for Battle for Lion's Arch. I actually had a comment. Someone was like, I'm excited to see Lion's Arch again, especially watching it burn. And I was like,
oh, but
yeah.
Lion's Arch was better back then.
Yeah, it looked better.
I miss it so much.
You at least get to see that in the story when everyone from Destiny's Edge is like meeting again and fighting, and so you do see that. But I'm stoked, and I made the joke on stream. I was like, this could totally be foreshadowed, and people were like, really? And I go, yeah, because of my Trin and Scarlet, and there's a Scarlet fight, so obviously this was foreshadowed for Season 1, and they're like, okay, yeah, sure, you're right. So
really interesting timing on that. I also talked about that on stream and how there was so many callbacks to Season 1 in this expansion, and it's like, I know it's like the characters, that's where they were, but then to realize that they were going to reintroduce Season 1, I was like, I see what you did there. I see what you
Right.
did. But my experience. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, my history of season 1 is that I played the first couple releases, but then that was the one time in Guild Wars 2's lifespan where I took a break. So I didn't play really any of the middle chunk of narrative. I came back for the Battle for Lion's Arch, and ever since then, I've kind of stuck with the game. So that's my history from season 1.
I didn't get to play it either.
Wow.
Like
I'm the only one.
I came in Path of Fire, so it had long had not been there. And I remember even playing through it, I was so confused. Like, I watched the little snippet, and then we got into Living Season 2, and I was just like, who are all these people? And why do they refer to me like they know me? Like, why do they think we're friends or something? I truly don't understand. And people are like, oh yeah, well, that's just like context for, Living Season 1, and because you met them there. And I really don't think that they could have gone ahead with anything other than this. Like, they could have, you know what I mean? They could have even just like maybe expanded the movie cinematic or something and just done that and called it there. But considering, yes, the full circle that they did, and really when you think about this, the dragon cycle starts because of Scarlet, because Scarlet wakes up Mordramoth. So like all of the events here that like were set in motion started in this season. Every single major character we have had since then was introduced in this season. So to say that like we are finishing the 10-year story arc of End of Dragons and moving on to something else, like literally they would not have been able to finish this story if they had not put this back in some sort of playable way for people. And really the only people that are going to push past these huge disparities in story are those players who like have people telling them the game is so worth it, do it, or those players who they really had certain elements speak to them. But just as many players are going to get to that point and then be like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean there's just a huge gap in the story of this game that is never explained? And they may not have even found the cinematic. They may not have any idea of what or why. Like, they don't know to ask those questions. So suddenly they are just me years ago being like, I have no idea who a single person is here. And I wish that I
And
understood.
also, you even in that cinematic you saw, there's still cinematics missing. I messaged you because you can't all watch the stream, but I messaged you the instance, which is called Lion's Arch, and in brackets it says Under Attack, which is like it technically Escape from Lion's Arch, because Escape from LA is an awesome movie, obviously, with Kurt Russell in it. So like all the fun times there. But basically, like this was so the reason why that everything is missing is a lot of this stuff was also they were transitioning from a model of live experience over experience that you can relive over and over again. And this was their plan for the future. So I have no idea how they thought that future players would be able to get into any kind of meaningful story. Like, I have no idea. Like at first, like everyone player-wise is like, this is amazing. This is the best. This is the best thing ever. And then it was like, well, every 2 weeks, that might not be doable. To do that because that's what they were going. That's what they pitched us. You know, I think it was every 2 weeks. I think it was something like that. It was ridiculous. Which, you know,
it was like literally changing everything with every single.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Cool. Well, like, we went to South Sun Cove, which was part of this story, like which was actually not part of the story, but it was pre-season 1. Yeah, and we went to South Sun, and there was basically a ton of instances. I'm talking about maybe potentially hundreds of thousands of players wanting to log in to play this, and going to one island with loads of different instances all at the same time. And Guild Wars 2 servers, they didn't die. they didn't get to the point of dying.
They evaporated.
They weren't even alive, I think, in the first place to be dead. It was just like, I remember the hype on the day we were in Mumble. This is pre all the things. So I was in Mumble still back then. And because Discord wasn't around. It was like TeamSpeak,
Vent, Mumble.
Yeah, Mumble was Mumble was more like the cool thing. And like TeamSpeak was like the whatever. And then Vent was just even more, well, actually Mumble was also cool. Anyway, But I remember like a whole guild being like 50 people, and we were like, oh, I can't get in. None of us were in the same instance. The game was just broken. I got through it, but it was like literally, I'm talking about a laggy PowerPoint, like a laggy PowerPoint. But I was still really hype and enjoying like the event, but it just didn't work because it was just broken for everyone. And then they kind of started doing that, and then there was a lot of season 1, especially in the beginning, people didn't like it. It was not good. Like there was just things people were like, I don't want to go around collecting signs. I don't want to do this. Like some of this stuff is rubbish. And then they started to get towards like Battle for LA and stuff, and Battle for LA was awesome. I'm just gonna play it in the background. There is the link, like if you want to have a look at it. But like the leading up to it, because obviously this again was a one-time event. Like this was a chronological thing which affected the game world, which I love, FYI. Like, you know, in World of Warcraft, for example, you know, we've got Cataclysm. I think Cataclysm was a really smart idea, but you can still go back, right? And can you time warp before Xandri to like actually
I mean, you can do time walking, but it's mainly like dungeons, so you don't ever really see the map pre-cata anymore. So like everything that the scar is through is just there, and a lot of people actually miss the way the maps looked previously before all of that happened. But...
Yeah, that's true. It does, because now like
just like LA.
Yeah, this is just lines
of changing the aesthetic.
Well, the LA was so good as well. Like it was just so good. Like just all the ships like used as buildings and like homes, and it was just so good. And the event was just it's one of my favorite events ever in Guild Wars 2.
It's my favorite. That's what got me back into the game, and not only did that get me back to try it and play it, I stayed ever since, because I was like, oh, this is the caliber that Guild Wars 2 can hit, and this is like the community and like epicness, and it was so much fun.
It was before Heart of Thorns as well. Like it wasn't even the expansion. Like it was leading. It was like, wow, here's Scarlet's in like Lion's Arch. So Scarlet's essentially in our home base. Like Scarlet's like, I don't care, I'm coming for you. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I was my Mesmer was still my main, funnily enough, actually, in this. And I used to lead not metas, but I used to lead these maps. And you just go from event to event, and it would just be cool, because you'd be like, wow, Lion's Arch just changed. And I'm gonna have to listen to this actually later. But like, you know, Lion's Arch has changed, all the old armor, wow. The cultural Norn armor, what's going on? But we didn't have much in the game at this point of view, even like looks wise, outfits.
Everyone's fashion wars was bad.
Yeah, well, everyone's fashion wars is Citadel
There was
fame.
no like account, there was no account sharing of fashion wars. Transmutation charges were so hard to come by. It was a different era. Dyes were character bound. Was
it even wardrobe system in this point
there
in time?
Wasn't.
I don't think there was, no, because I've got Citadel. Yeah, I've got Citadel of Flame armor on there and some Temple armor, which is really old school. Wow, that's amazing. Oh my god, Marjorie and Casimir. I forget that they were in the game. I keep forgetting they were in the game this early as well, like Brown and everything. I'm just like, oh my god, I forgot about
it. I mean, all those characters were. And like, actually, one of the things that I'm so excited to see, because I think that, like you all pointed out, they tailored End of Dragons in a sense, completely factoring in the story beats that they had hit from Living Season 1 and trying to bring them all to fruition in a way. So going back and doing this is amazing, because even back in, what was it, 2013? Was that when it was? I'm trying to remember. Like when this happened.
Like that. 25.
Guild Wars 2 had one of the first ever, maybe still the only, I don't know, I need to do more research on this, same-sex kisses depicted in the game, which is like
MMO for
absolutely amazing. And like even now in MMORPGs, representation is such a topic, right? Because very few other games will commit to it and actually show it. And yet we've had these incredible characters. My favorite is that in the PC Gamer article, they do also say Season 1 introduced the current main cast, including this himbo, and then there's a picture of Bram.
Really?
I mean, we got literally every major character was introduced in that season. You know, Cardry was introduced as a ship and as two independent entities, as well as even stuff about the detective agency, which like you will hear about in End of Dragons, and they even talk about as some of the future plans and the growth for that agency. And then as well, the bar that they get married in. I mean, that was all stuff that you did in season 1. So like to be able to actually go back and now retailer season 1 in a way that they know where they're going to with it, and they're going to be trying to figure out how they can fill in the gaps in the best way and provide the most context for End of Dragons. I'm actually genuinely really excited about it. And that paired with those changes to the core game experience, I think again just gives everybody, plus all of the achievements for Return 2, it gives everybody such an opportunity to go back, replay everything, and like reconnect and re-experience this game, and then look forward to the future.
Oh, like the thing, and now the thing is, and I guess we can talk about this maybe in terms of, yeah, you read that bit. Okay, in terms of like what the strike is for this, like, I don't know actually. I mean, I'm assuming it will be Scarlet, probably, maybe. But
it's gonna be the holographic Scarlet.
You think it's gonna be the holo from the?
That's the one that is the most fitting of a strike mission. It's a large arena. Holographic Scarlet is very tall. When you fight Scarlet, because you do fight the holographic one and then you go fight Scarlet, that feels more like maybe a bit more of like a story beat rather than like a strike mission that's kind of this
rather
larger.
than like a personal. Yeah.
So I think it'll be holographic Scarlet. I'm interested to see how they're going to do the rest of the battle, like the attack on Lion's Arch and also the retaking of Lion's Arch, because there might not be the same scale, because it'll probably be something you do up by yourself or with 5 friends. But I imagine they can do something where there's more NPCs around and maybe some phasing of some kind.
Could be like the instance they do for Icebreed Saga.
Visions of the Past?
Yeah, so you could be like, they could do that. They could do the Dragon Battle. Yeah, like they have
Dragonstorm.
Yeah, Dragonstorm, sorry.
Oh,
so you have like a big squad. You have big squad that goes through, because this is an instance. This is, you know, LA is a map and is an instance. Like that was an instance of a map. They've definitely still got it. They've still got all the stuff for it. I just wonder, is that something that could happen every? It's just another event to fit in. But like, I would love for people to experience that as I experienced it, because it was amazing. Like you get to go revisit. Okay, it's a destroyed LA, but it's still LA. But like you get to visit kind of a place that you haven't visited before, and maybe you can visit it before as well, and you know, introducing the story. Also, there's loads of other stuff I love, but like I think it was such a fun experience to just go through, and with lots of players, and just like all the mini bosses and champions, and the loot was great. It was just fun. I would love people to be able to relive that, but also it would be cool to re-experience it in a different way as well. I don't know how, like, maybe Sandra and Rook, like, what would you prefer to kind of experience, do you think?
I think if they went really buck wild, and I don't know if I think they'll actually do this.
Yeah, you just go for unicorns doing all the things.
I think if they went really buck wild, they could introduce a like smaller scale map that could be like an alternative instance. Well, it could just be an alternative version of Lion's
DRM.
Like, no, not a DRM. I mean like an actual map in the game, like an actual map in the game. Yeah. And it could be a meta event. Like that map, kind of like what we see with the final zone of End of Dragons, could be like a map that is about the meta, right? It could be about the moment in many ways. And it could just essentially be that, so that people could still go on and like run it as though it were any other map meta. And there could, you know, be some other things that you could explore or do on it if they really wanted to make that the finale. Do I think they'll do that? Probably not. It would be a lot of work. I don't know. I think probably something that's, I mean, even if they did, again, like I want them to codify things into these categories. So I don't really want just like another DRM. I mean, a fractal or something, you know, maybe we could have something like that would then be sort of merged in. But I honestly think it'd be super cool if they culminated it in a map version of Old Lion's Arch, and how you could toggle that or whatever, or like instance between old and new. It would just be really fun, I think.
Yeah, I like that idea too. I'm not exactly sure how they would go about it, but I think it would be really cool. And I'm actually curious to see, because they said it's going to be like the five episodes, which obviously wouldn't culminate like the full story of everything. So I'm excited to see exactly what they pick and choose for it. Obviously, having only watched the video, I'm not exactly sure, and I don't have a lot of say in it, but I think it's really cool. And the other thing that I really like is that they're still pushing the strike mission and challenge mode. So it's not like you're talking about DRMs and fractals and dungeons, and it's like, yes, those are all instances, and now they've progressed to strikes. But it would be nice if they just said, this is now the instanced PvE content. Like, this is what you do, which is going to be strikes and CMs. And I do like that they're integrating the CMs, because it gives more for players who are more like a little bit less casual, if you want to play that way, and it kind of like bridges that gap too, so that there's something for everyone. So I'm excited for all of it, just because I missed it. So
And on the topic of strike missions, this is going to be the very first introduction of 10-player group content that free-to-play players can participate in, or people who just have the normal
That's
Guild
true.
Wars
It's
2
gonna be
account.
free, isn't it? Yeah.
There's never been raid access or strike mission access to anyone. So this will be a great way for people to, even if you're a free-to-play player, really test and see if this game has endgame content that you are interested in, aside from fractals.
I completely forgot about that. Good pickup. That's a really good point. That is actually ridiculous, because like you say, they would have had to pay for it. Like, we would have had to pay to get that access. So it's like, so that's good. That's an accessibility thing. Although then you're talking about LFG again, because they've got to start putting this in the game. They just have to.
Would be nice.
They have to. They're even putting it in New World now, for God's sake. Like, even New World's going there. It's just like, anyway, that's another thing. But
the topic about strikes and the free-to-play player experience, kind of going back to what Rook was saying, I think the core personal story needs to have 2 or 3 strike missions for that as well, to integrate that into
story,
even
like 18 leveling up to 80.
to 80. I would say for the Zaitan arc, you could make a strike mission out of the mouth of Zaitan, the eye of Zaitan, and Zaitan himself.
Do you think, though, Kroof, like talking about that, not sorry to interrupt because it's on your point, do you think you could have baby strikes like leading up to that as like more of an intro, like as in players are kind of doing it as like a lower level thing, or do you think that would be not worth it?
I think there's already dungeons that you experience throughout the story. I would like if they were more directly baked into the actual personal story arc. It's something you can choose to do. But I think once you get to around 80, that's when you really should be pushing players a little bit more strongly into the direction of, okay, this is the end game. This is the level of strike missions that we have. And Zaitan being one of the weakest fights Guild Wars 2 has created, I think Zaitan is the most fitting for an overhaul in terms of a strike mission. And especially if they're doing it for season 1, that would give core and free-to-play players a good idea of like, and also even veterans, to go back to these areas and to these zones to re-immerse yourself in it and experience more endgame content for everybody.
Yeah, it's something that you just have to do at a certain point, right? MMOs develop, they change, what they're going to do, they tailor content, how they deliver that content. Then the big thing becomes, how do we retroactively make this a linear, streamlined experience where people know what to expect, what kind of content they can engage with, and like what is out there for them to enjoy in this game. And one of the big problems with Guild Wars 2 right now is that because the game has changed so drastically from the initial envisioning, and I think in most ways for the better, honestly, it is something where going back and retroactively making it so that core game experience and living season 1 actually give people a taste of like, well, I do want to have this other stuff. Like, I do want more strikes. I know what strikes are. I was introduced to them back in the core game. I was introduced to them. Like, it's not something where, people are just trying to figure out, like, how do I even engage with content that I would want to play in an MMO in this MMO? Like, what even is that? What are dungeons? But they phase those out? Well, what are, like, they need to retroactively go and adjust some other things and like add stuff in like they're talking about. And I'm so glad they are doing. I mean, even in 14 right now, we're seeing this. There were these like weird sword thumbs, like dungeons that were these main story culmination dungeons that like for a long time they just haven't known what to do with because they have so many cutscenes and there's so much stuff in them and people get really salty running them, and like they were part of various grinds and they take a million years and they're like these really weird things. So they just themselves announced that they are going to be essentially packaging those up into like breaking it up and packaging them up into various types of content that fall in line with what you expect for the overall experience of Final Fantasy XIV. So in a very similar like point in their development cycle, Guild Wars 2 also is having to do this now. How do we create a language, a throughput of what players can expect? One thing that I thought was also a really good note on this is the fact that in that PC Gamer article, they actually elaborate a little bit and say that the interviewer asked about the scrying pool instances that are in Iceberg Saga. And Josh apparently said that the rebuilt season 1 will make the scrying pool versions of those missions superfluous. So we'll be phasing those out as the relevant missions become available in the story journal. All related achievements will still be completable.
So that was their plan originally, to just keep that, and now they're just replacing it because I wonder if it's because people just wanted it the way they can do it. Like, I wonder if that is the like that's literally listening to the feedback, but also thinking about the future and future players and that gap we've been talking about. Interesting. I need to go read that. Okay. Wow. Anything else? No,
More strikes. For Core, Season 1, and the
All
other
positives.
expansions. I would love Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire strike mission.
Oh yeah,
I just like strikes a lot. They're so much fun.
Yeah, I would just love if they kept that and just left it as these are what our instances are. These are what you can expect. We do strikes and then we have challenge modes. And then just change everything to fit that form.
Yeah, honestly.
Awesome. Let's go on to World v World. If we, I don't know if we need to read the World v World.
This one felt more like the other World versus World blog post. Is kind of just reiterating that they're testing things.
It doesn't feel like a big
There's no
need to
big
read it.
reward. There's no announcements of rewards. I think the only thing is they talk about balance. Or that they also have another section about that, but they're going to be like focusing more on balance. But it's not really any big news in this section.
Yeah, my big takeaways from this were that, again, they're just reiterating World versus World is a cornerstone mode. They have plans on developing it. In order to do that, they need to address foundational limitations and problems with this game mode to make it a better experience for everyone and so that as many people can engage with it as possible. That once that is done, they realize that even as a part of those foundational things, that rewards are not super satisfying. So they are taking a look at like alternative ways that they can provide better rewards for active participation and make engaging with World versus World more rewarding and more active for those who want to engage with it. And then finally, that like after they do this core stuff, they will be looking ahead to the future of World versus World, which could encompass anything from new modes, new maps, but that they knew they couldn't just start churning that stuff out with a system that had other fundamental things and foundational things that needed to be addressed. So that's what I mostly took away. I don't know.
Yep. Basically. Looking at, they need to, they're trying to squash that major bug, like you said, more rewarding, more better. I'm kind of like at the point with World v World now where I'm like, poor buggers. Like they're just really not getting their stuff, are they? At the moment, I'm just like, oh,
hey,
dear.
there will be more profession updates with World versus World in PvP next week, and that actually is a good segue into the next.
Yeah, and I mean,
next
I don't even view it as like, oh, I feel so bad for them right now. And I know a lot of people are so bummed they didn't get like a Cantha map and stuff with World versus World.
Nah, they don't need that.
Well, like,
should get it though.
They should. Like, I get it. It's fair, right? Like, this is a big draw as to why people play this game. And we've even seen other MMOs like ESO, I think, although I have no confirmation, directly draw inspiration from this game mode to introduce it into their own games with more, having a testing pool previously in another game to look at it and then be like, and this is how we'll do it, right? So
wow, Guild Wars 2 stole it from.
Well, yes, there was another game that inspired
Steelers.
it.
There was Warhammer Online and Dark Age of
Warhammer,
Camelot.
that's what it was.
Warhammer Online did the open RVR. So open RVR games have been around for ages, and like Guild Wars 2 took a lot from Warhammer Online, including the heart system and the event system, which is there's a lot, and it's good. Like that's a good thing, but they refined it and they made it kind of okay.
Yes, but like the main thing here being, I mean, well, as we all know, MMOs draw from a million different sources and different inspirations. But like, I honestly think this is great because these things straight up do need to be addressed, and they have been communicating them very clearly. And if we want future content for this game mode, these are the steps that have to be taken. So it's like, to me, it's like, yes, you have to wait a little bit longer. And I know that is frustrating for people that have waited for a very long time for this game mode to be addressed. And I don't want to undermine that. But at the same time, like, this is news and this is good. Like, this is going to open this up to more players. It's going to be more rewarding for those who like it. And then from there, we can see how they want to build it. But they definitely have not said, like, it really is over and done. Like, this is the complete opposite of that, you know?
Exactly. And now we wait for Jebro to get back so we can progress to the next section of profession updates, unless I just start reading.
I mean, I feel like mostly just them saying that they're going to have continuous updates on the schedule for even professions is good too. But that's really all it is, except for the CMs officially coming out on the 19th in the profession update.
And also season 1 is coming out in the 19th, so we have less than a month away before we play the very first episode for season 1. Great. This blog post has great scheduling and information about scheduling. It looks very promising.
Good job. Sorry about that.
No
Even
worries.
though the building next door has stopped and there's people moved in next door, they're now doing build work on the other parts of the building. So they're like knocking on doors, and they took the water off this morning, and I can't wait to move. Lord, this. Okay, so yes, professions. Does it all kind of read that? Is the shorty? It's a shorty one. I don't mind doing it.
Go for it, Jebro.
Yeah.
Take it away.
You love balance. This is your sector.
Yay! Okay, kind of. It's not that. I'm actually not sure if I'm happy or not about this bit. I know. Profession updates. Balance and maintenance of Guild Wars 2's extensive combat system, including the latest elite specializations released with End of Dragons, is important for keeping gameplay engaging and varied across PvE, World v World, and PvP. Sorry. I just remembered a post on Twitter the other day. Someone said it's actually quicker to say like World versus World than it is to say WWW or something like that. Like it's just funny. Anyway, it just randomly popped into my head. Moving forward, we'll be making professions and elite specialization updates a higher priority, which I did talk about pre-EOD release. Our plan includes quarterly profession updates with smaller releases in between as we monitor and respond to how the meta in each game mode takes shape. In addition to the number of tweaks that you're used to seeing, the team will be revisiting some underpowered and underused weapon skills. Engineer turrets, please. And bombs. Like, let the engineer have some actual stuff that is fun to use. Come on. The team will be revisiting these things, or utilities for each profession in each profession update each profession update. Okay. To help expand your arsenal, we will continue to make game mode specific balance adjustments as needed. We'll be releasing some PvP and World v World balance changes in the March 29 update, and our first major profession update will drop on June 28th, which is a little bit away, but it's okay. I'm just going to give you my initial thoughts. I'm going to talk first. The quarterly updates are okay. I thought they were going to give us bigger updates after EOD, like quickly in succession. Like that was my impression from some of the notes they'd put up, some of the blog posts and stuff. I know they're doing small ones. Obviously, they've got the rest of the game to balance and stuff as well. I don't know if they need to worry too much about classes at the moment, because I think people are still playing around with them, still trying to get used to them anyway. And like, I think you put too many changes in early, you know, it confuses people a little bit, especially newer players. But like older and vet players, like specifically getting upset about like Catalyst and other things is another tale. But I feel like this is just it's gonna go back to the way it was. I just have this feeling in my soul that it's just gonna get, because quarterly updates is still, you know, every 3 months, which is actually pretty good for an MMO, to be honest. It was I think it was 6 months before. Maybe it was 6 months.
Yeah, we've had like 6-7 month stretches. So I'll take quarterly over.
I'll take it as well. That's true.
Biannually. Or
I think
twice
maybe
a year.
biannually, that's true. But I think the main one, and I think this is the saving part of this for me, where I'm like, okay, so maybe the reason is as well is because they're actually doing a lot of work on past stuff and stuff that people don't actually use. So if you think about your classes that you all play as well, I mean, I know, like I said, I was made sounded like a bit of a joke, but turrets are a joke. Like, they're just silly. Like, they don't, like, you know, they just sit there and they're cool. Like, they're, you know, they, in a way, like hitting turrets, all right. But the other stuff is just, it just seems odd. Like, it just doesn't really, they don't really do much. They just sit there, and bombs are like crap in PvP and they're crap in World v World. And if you're just standing at a boss and like a striker or raid and stuff, you just plop them on the ground. I get it, but they're still not massively fun to use. So there's loads of stuff for engineering. There's loads of stuff for other classes where I'm like, yeah, you just don't use that stuff. They're going to change banners, right, for warriors. They've still got that work to do. They're changing spirits as well. So that's exciting. So there is a lot of work they've got to do, so I get it. So maybe I'm not that sad about this, but I think I wanted to like a lot quickly. I think they did a lot of balance pre and like as, you know, just before they were bringing it out. But what do other people think? What do people think? Sorry, I'll rabbit on this bit.
I like this schedule. I think having a PvP and World vs. World dedicated balance patch next week is going to be really interesting. And even in that patch, they are touching a little bit of an elite spec, the Catalyst, because there were some community reactions to that. So they're definitely still adjusting and tackling major hot button issues. But in terms of having a schedule, I'd rather them stick to that schedule and say they're going to do it every 3 months than rather like have a window of each month and then they're like, okay, so that's done, then have no balance patch for like 6-7 months. And my understanding was actually they were going to start doing more frequent balance patches after they nailed down World vs. World. At least that's kind of how it was written in the World vs. World post. But then again, it's like, did that mean balance specifically for competitive game modes, or did that also entail balance for the entire game? So it was maybe a little bit of an interpretation in that blog post, but I'm not too mad at this. June 28th is a little bit ways away, but I like having any balance with PvP and World vs. World to talk
I guess it's only
about.
2.5 months.
It's not too bad.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
I'm excited for it. I don't think it's bad. I think that they'll, in between that time, still be able to see if there are any like exploits or if things are overperforming like the Catalyst and be able to handle those on like an as needed basis like they have been doing, and then just doing everything together for these systematic updates. I think it's a good thing just to hear that, yeah, it's not going to be all the time. It's not going to be like maybe once a year. This is what our goal is, and I really like that. And it doesn't mean that they won't address issues along the way.
Yeah, they did mention that in the middle of each major update, like in the interim, they'll be doing smaller patches here and there. So I think they have a more solid team around balance particularly. So that's nice to hear.
I think they've got the same team. I just think they're trying to focus more. Because I don't think anyone's left. I don't think everyone's moved, as far as I know. Because I know those guys. but like, I think that the main problem was, so if you don't know, I'm gonna get a bit salty right now. This is gonna
let me
happen.
get my chips.
So first,
I'm seasoning my chips.
Kroof will probably remember this. But like, Season 1 Pro League Guild Wars 2 esports entry into like the world of esports, when I was shoutcasting, like the peak, like the beginning of the peak, Season 1, when Chronomancer came out, and was literally a bunker. I mean, you've all experienced Chronomancer in raids, like knowing how like back in the day specifically as well. And I think maybe even up until maybe Zendry was playing maybe as well. I don't know.
I've heard stories too.
Okay, yeah, that's it. And like it just being ridiculous, like just, you know, a complete tank, can do all the things. And every team had one at least. Some teams had two. And we changed the rules so you could only have one class per team. I can't remember when we changed that. But anyway, basically, I was commentating and I was in England, but I was in Leicester. So I was in this big studio for ESL and it was amazing and it was great. But then I'm in this place where I'm trying to commentate and make exciting like calls about two Chronomancers hitting each other on a neutral point. And I'm like,
in the entire game.
Yeah, on Battle for Kylo, and it was just like the clock tower. I was just like, in my head, I was like this. What do I do? But like in my professional shoutcaster, whoa, this is amazing! You know, you sword free and look at the rest of the map, blah blah blah, etc. And I'm going off on one, being my hype self. But then in my heart, I'm just like, kill me, because like it is literally painful doing this because it was just awful to watch, and they didn't change it, and it literally destroyed like the Season 1 for Guild Wars 2 PvP. And like all the people in the comp scene know it as well. And it was just such a painful thing to not have a change that could have just catapulted this season and just changed the outcome of what it was, because it killed it. It just so killed it, and it was all balance issues. And it's really like, I'm still sorry about that. It doesn't matter, like it doesn't matter in the end of things, but like
it's still a fresh wound.
But like it was such a big thing though, Kroof. It was back then. It was so huge, and it, you know, we were getting good viewership, and then it just fell. Like interest.
I remember
fell
watching them in my like living room flat screen and just like seeing everything and like the whole production of it. It did baffle me as to why when you were progressing into something so public where everyone's eyes are watching it, to not have faster reaction times with like, oh, this thing is like a glaring issue that people are reacting very negatively about, and then to not even touch it or talk about it was very strange.
Like resources should have been adjusted. We just didn't get it at the end of the day. And I can probably guess what the restrictions were, but I don't want to say. But like, you know, I think there were mixed ideas of how PvP was for a lot of like PvE peeps, as well as staff who worked for internet. I think there was a lot of contention between like PvE and PvP, and there was a whole massive argument about marketing and money and like being spent on PvP, and how that money should have been put into PvP. And there was this huge thing on Reddit. It got pretty dicey for a while. There was lots of stuff.
Like well before they did skill splitting. So if they did touch Chronomancer, it would have affected everybody else. I think they should have. I mean, Guild Wars 1 had skill splitting between the two game modes, so it did kind of baffle me as to like the early moments of Guild Wars 2 and the early moments of Heart of Thorns. It still really didn't have its footing.
So maybe that's why I'm maybe a little bit hesitant, or a little bit like scared. But like maybe, and I should probably just forget about it and just realize that now is the different time, and that's okay, and it's gonna be fine.
Well, I mean,
it's like a trusting thing too, because a lot of people, when you talk about these exciting new things, a lot of people are like, but there have been times in the past when they've promised these things and they didn't do it.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
so I feel like that's a part of it as well.
For sure.
And I mean, that's really just going to take a little bit of willingness from everybody to buy into the new stuff, you know, like buy into everything that's being talked about, as well as the studio actually proving that that trust is not misplaced, right?
Yeah.
And that these things are things they're taking action on. And so while it's so awful because Jeb, I mean, like you said, here you are on this, new horizon for the game, and like particularly at that time, MMOs in the esport arena, like it wasn't a thing really, right? So Guild Wars 2 to be like one of the first to bridge that gap and have a dynamic system that was so exciting, that was a huge opportunity for the game. And like now, long term, does it really matter? No. I mean, am I also glad that it didn't just become an esports centric game and then they dumped all the other content because they were like, the only thing that matters is this PvP? Like, I do think that this game's journey has been a really fantastic one. They've learned so much, and it's had its high points and its low points. But I think that something like this mention from the profession updates is exactly acknowledging that, right? It really seems like, and even the way that they started this post saying, we took stock of all the ways that we have dropped the ball, that we have, done an amazing job, that we have like, what's unique about our game that's fantastic, what can we really work on, what were some of the biggest stumbling blocks that we've had in this game so far. And when you hit that 10-point marker and you close out that story you've been working on, I mean, I think that it's a great time for that reflection. So this feels to me more so like them, I think, trying to truly say like, hey, let's actually build this trust. We are going to do this regularly. We realize that in the past, this was a problem. So like, we know we need to be more in tune with this for the different game modes and more actively revamping stuff. So while it's, again, not something that, like, I understand why not everybody is going to be super thrilled about this or excited about this, especially given some of the context about how balancing has been in the past, whether or not balancing has really even helped, whether or not it's even happened. Like, there's definitely an effort here being made. And I mean, already with the immediate response for Catalyst, we are seeing them, I think, try to not repeat that mistake from the past with Chronomancer, try to be better about these things, right?
Good point, actually. Yeah, that is a good point. Like, because there's because they didn't do that. I don't think they did that after Heart of Thorns initially. Did they? No, I don't think they did.
I can't remember it. No.
I don't think they did. So that is good. Yeah, it's true. This is the thing. I'm definitely more on the hopeful, positive side. I just always have been. Like, but like, that is definitely still in the back of my head there. Just like post expansion. I can't remember what they did post Path of Fire either, to be honest. But anyway,
they reworked Deadeye and then left Firebrand and Scourge to dominate.
Oh my god, do you remember they did redo Deadeye? And it was like, oh wow, that's such a cool in-depth thing. And they did Mesmer as well, didn't they? Yeah, they did. They did Mesmer a bit. Yeah. They did a whole. I'm pretty sure they did a big post.
They did Chronomancer. They did do a couple reworks with Chronomancer, Tempest, Revenant, Druid.
Okay, well, does anyone else want to say anything else about that? Because I think we're starting to get towards kind of the end, but there's still.
Now we're getting to End of Dragon stuff.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Finally.
Does someone want to read this?
I'll go for it. Let's do it.
Okay.
Period.
End of Dragons continued as Jebro slurps in the distance.
Sorry.
No, you're good. This month, the team is focused on polishing up Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons by addressing content balance issues, exploits, and bug fixes. Your feedback has been immensely helpful in this regard, and we're continuing to watch conversations around rewards, meta difficulty, elite specializations, and others. Please continue to share your thoughts with us and keep an eye on the forums and our social media channels for updates. We're also working on finalizing the Force Strike Mission Challenge modes, the first of which is slated to release on April 19th. We've already heard a lot of positive feedback about the design of these encounters, and we're excited to see the community tackle these epic encounters over the next few months. The first new variant for the Generation 3 legendary weapons for all weapon types will drop on May 24th, themed after the fearsome Elder Dragon Zaitan. Details on how to unlock these variants will become available closer to their release. Any guesses as to what second variant will be in June? Finally, we're happy to confirm that we're working on the next story update for Guild Wars 2, including a new map set in the Cantha region. The story, and how we tell it, can go in so many interesting directions now that the Elder Dragon threat is addressed.
Criff.
Juicy.
I see.
Juicy.
You like. Actually, Xandri.
I'm excited about all of it, to be honest. I'm excited to try Strike CMs. Zaitan was actually my absolute favorite dragon model out of all of them. So I'm super stoked to actually start going for legendary weapons just because of this and how, like, the themes and how they look to begin with. Very excited. And I wasn't sure if they were going to address if they were going to continue the story. So I'm very excited that there is going to be whatever they end up calling it, but a Living World 6, right? Very excited. So I think it's going to be great because I love the story and I love lore. So that's a huge thing for me. So it's going to be awesome.
Cool.
I agree. Challenge modes, my body is ready. I cannot imagine the challenge modes for the last 2 strike missions. It's gonna be wild. Legendary weapons, I haven't really started that with the Aurene set, but I am actually really interested to see how you would acquire the different skins. I hope there is some sort of quest line that is associated with each of the dragons.
Or is it going to be achievements, Criff? God.
Achievements, which are basically quest lines, which another thing I would kind of hope they rework. But also season 6, not only did we get confirmation of the next season, because I feel like season 1 is being treated in a way as its own season. It gives them a chance to maybe retcon some things, polish some things up, eliminate the fat of the story if they're like, actually that didn't happen. But they're also going on to season 6, which as confirmation, and this isn't just the only confirmation of the future, there's a huge one at the very end, but to even get word that they're already working on season 6 on top of season 1 paints a much brighter timeline for me in terms of like, we'll get season 1 relatively quickly, and then hopefully by the end of the year, season 6 will really start to kick off and we can get back into Cantha.
I'm trying to remember when the season came out after Path of Fire and also Heart of Thorns. It was pretty quick.
Was like 9 months. Path of Fire was like a month after.
Yeah, Path of Fire was quick. But yeah, Heart of Thorns was more interesting.
This is so exciting. I'm so happy. I've seen some people who were like, oh, so all we're getting is Living Season 1, so they're not doing anything new garbage. And I'm like, what? Did you not read? You didn't read the post then. So you need to go back and read the post and really read it, and then you're going to get it. Because this is definitely confirmation of the story after. And there's so many ways that they could start this, take this, do this. I mean, I've seen people talking about everything from the Largos and the strange disruption undersea. And when we get some kind of map that's like an underwater city, but that, you know, would have land areas in it even.
No,
kind of like
we're going to
dwarfs.
So it's going to be dwarfs.
Okay, yeah, it's all dwarfs. You're right, Jebro. I've seen people talk about Raisu Palace and how we have information about trying to reclaim that from the Risen. Like, all sorts of different things. There's so many paths they could take. They could even just talk about the continuing like feuding factions and how they're going to, in this world, in the years to come or in the months to come, how they're going to come together or not. So there's a lot of places to start with and then jump off from with Cantha. So having that is fantastic. I mean, also these strikes are so good, Kroof, and I am just as excited as you because like, really, truly, I think you tweeted something not too long ago that was like, if this is the future of endgame content, I am so okay with it. And I was like, yes. And then Kroof and I ran them together on stream. Thanks again for that. That was fun.
We did.
And it was such a blast. Like the range of difficulty in these, I think, great. I hope with the CMs that we see them all be, you know, fairly difficult content, right? Again, like if this is endgame content, then yes, let's definitely have this bar be fairly high on these and let's get into it. And those last 2, I'm sure, are going to be absolutely ridiculous. But they have such a good starting point and I'm really excited to see how they continue to do that. And then obviously these legendaries, like I've never made a legendary before, but as you all know, I kind of like Aurene. So, and the Elder Dragons are like, all right, I guess. So the fact that they are all Elder Dragon themed, yeah, I'm super pumped about it. I'm like actually planning for the first time ever to try and get them. So I think this is just a great little section. There's a lot of great stuff in this.
I haven't actually done the strikes. Yeah.
The big thing for me that's just one, it's kind of like my running joke where I'm like, I want to do everything in the game. like being more new, like there's so many things that I can do. Like I haven't been around since day one, so I didn't do it when it was live, so I can go back and do this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, I'm gonna fully 100% everything and whatever. And then I get really excited about the story. Yeah. And then I rush the story. And then I wanted to be ready for End of Dragons. And so not like rush as in didn't appreciate the story, but I only did the story rather than anything else. And I did the same thing for Icebrood because I wanted to be ready for End of Dragons. And then I did the same thing with End of Dragons because I wanted to save the exploration to play with my husband. And now I'm going, okay, so there's going to be a season 1 and a season 6. So I have to actually plan this out and finish my 100%ing of these maps and go back and do all of the core Tyria stuff and then the living. And so the only thing for me is I'm just like, it's a good thing because it's good content, but I don't want to get sucked in too quick.
It's hard.
Because of where they could take it. And I just, yeah. Because I'm like, I have so many things. I really should have had a list and taken my time.
I mean, the thing is, story is
scheduling,
good.
we have to schedule as well.
If you've done story, you're up to date with stuff, really, honestly. I mean, map completion, thankfully, and there's little stories in there which, you know, it might give you some little snippets and information, but thankfully I think like the story, at least because it is very linear, it's not like ESO, for example, I was talking about this before, is a little bit easier to drop in. You can just drop it anywhere because they don't have a chronological order as far as they're concerned. Like they literally, like game director told me, it was like, we want people to go in here and play from where they want to play. Like if they want to play the latest expansion, if they want to go to Greymore, like West Skyrim, they can go there first and then they can complete core game if they want to. Like there's no linear order. They're all just adventures that happen, which is cool. I do like a linear story as well, but like you can play it linearly. And then people, but they adjust like voice acting and stuff to the fact where they're like, oh, hey, I remember you when you kicked me in the knee or something. I don't know.
Ow.
That is all when you shot me in the knee with an arrow. But like, come on, it was this Skyrim joke had to come out. But yeah, so like that in that respect, thankfully, people. I mean, inevitably as well, you know, they're gonna have this. You might even be able to relive some of the stuff in a way, just hand in hand, as people start to remember bits and bobs when they re-release like these newer episodes. Sorry, the new version of the episode from back in the day. You'll probably start to see other achievements popping up and redos. Like there's loads. They were talking about. I'm not sure if it was in the blog post somewhere else. There's loads of achievements from back then that got deleted because they don't exist. The content doesn't exist. There's loads of content, loads of achievements that people have, but other people can't get. So they're going to bring those back. So there's going to be loads of little extra bits and bobs. That's why that's exciting as well. It's very cool. It is like, was there was something specific in yeah, like the legendaries as well, the new skins. Like that's going to be like I want to know that one specific thing. Like, do you have to make the Aurene legendary and then you change the skin, or is it that you get different parts completely, or is it like, that's the thing. Like I want to, you know what I want a blog post just on that, but I also want a video. I want to see them. I want to see how
they look good.
They do look good, but we've only seen one iteration. Haven't we seen the great sword or the sword or whatever it was.
There are files in the game.
I have not seen them, so I will not look.
They look good, so that's all I will say.
Okay. Let's see if there's anything else we need to really go over there. I'm in the challenge mode. Awesome. I'm actually running an event on the Lightbringers Guild this Saturday.
Ooh.
Yeah, blind. I'm going in blind. I'm gonna lead it. So if you want to come, you are more than welcome to come.
If I'm around, I could pop in.
Yeah.
I love doing some strikes.
Yeah,
I do love it.
Either.
I'm out of town this weekend, but I would love to sometime.
They're fun. I started this morning, so they're a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited. I just haven't had the time, and I was like, I want to do an event, so flip it. I'll do it during the Vault Fun.
But they're daily, Jebro. You have to do them every day.
Every single day.
You gotta farm that currency because everything's so expensive.
I don't subscribe to the doing dailies anymore in MMOs. I got too much other stuff to do. I'm just like, nah, I can't do that anymore.
You have to get the mystic coins, man. Didn't you hear the big debacle?
I've got like 4K mystic coins. Okay.
What about the clovers for legendary Oreen weapons?
Yeah, but I'm play PvP. Yeah, clovers ain't a problem either.
What about your rep in the community, Jebro? Like, you gotta do it every day if you're a serious, committed player to Guild Wars 2.
I'm 40. I don't care what other people think about me.
Jebro, why aren't you playing the strength missions? There's another dwarf infusion in the merchant.
Wait, is there?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
I'm lying.
Oh, Crew! Oh my god! Crew, you're the worst person.
Is the combat dwarf tonic?
That was the worst.
Is there a combat dwarf
you
tonic?
are actually, yes, there is in the DRMs.
Okay,
that's the only reason I farmed them, other than to get. That is the reason why I played DRMs to death, because you can get a dwarf. I fucking hate you. I'm sorry. That was I really do though. Like. But there is a thing.
I just shattered Jebro's heart. I'm so sorry.
I don't know if Andrew's seen it, but I don't know if any of you know about it because you might not be interested in dwarfs. But you can get an infusion which you can farm for the marks from the dwarf DRM and other DRMs if you do daily, where you turn all grey like a dwarf. And if you combine that with the grey outline as well, it looks so good. And if you've got glowing parts to your armor, like come off the armor, Rook, I'm serious. It looks good.
I just love watching you talk about something you love, Jebro. You go for it. Tell us about the armor and how it glows when you use the tonic.
It's like show and tell from kindergarten.
I've actually seen it for like transmog contests, and it's really sharp. Like they actually look like stone. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It is also. It doesn't show like the. If you've got glow bits like glowy eyes and stuff, like your eyes come through, so it looks really good with like the Ender Dragon's armor and stuff. Cool. Anyway. But yeah, so you can, and I hate you, Criff. If you also hate Criff, make sure you go and subscribe to their content and tell them. Yeah, comment below. Oh my god, I thought there was another one. I was so excited. I was like, yes, tomorrow's gonna be amazing.
I was gonna say, why aren't you giving in to our peer pressure? But then that came out, and I was like,
yeah, right. I know. Okay. So, next big one. So, yeah, and they talked about the next story content, which is going to be in Canva. So, we're not leaving Canva, so it is going to be like really Canva themed still. So, we're not going off on some like random tangent or anything. It's going to be, it's interesting to see, you know, what we're doing now. We're talking about the I feel like we're going to go more into the gangs probably. I think we're going to go, there's loads of different directions they can go right now. Yeah. I mean, they can make it up now. They can just do what they want. Yeah. They can just bring everyone to camp first. Screw the rest of the world. Just go camp
more like, more Jade Brotherhood I think would be really cool, because I loved getting into New Kaineng and just seeing them everywhere, and they were obviously like yellow, and so it like they were kind of like, they weren't great, but they're fine because of the trade that they do with like Jinlai. And I'm sitting here going, I didn't know that. So I got into Kaineng and I'm just like hitting and slaying every single one, because I wasn't thinking of like the diplomatic things and the trade and the politics.
Wow.
So I think it'd be cool to go into that even more. I don't know.
Slaying
I'd love to see a plot about the new villain Xandri, who's a mass murderer that's causing large-scale slaughter in the streets of Kaineng.
Yeah, I did. I was doing it for like 15 minutes, and I'm like, wow, they've really taken over New Kaineng. I can understand why, because at the time I wasn't really sure about June either. And so I had mixed feelings, and I didn't know like what was going to happen with the story, and I thought she was just like, getting us into a trap, and she was actually trying to take over because her sister was, emperor and not her because of, family things that she can't. So I had like this whole thing, and then to hear that she did trade with the Jade Brotherhood. So I got in there and I'm just killing them all. And everybody's just like, nobody says anything. And then I was like, oh my gosh, they're not hostile.
I love
and everybody's like,
Yeah, the fact that you can do that though is good.
The fact that they had an option where you could attack them, I was like,
Right.
that's actually a really cool
It's just
detail.
like destroying things.
But they're not actually good. I mean, they're not
not
like
good,
bad
not
in this case
bad.
either. But yeah,
You're in the middle ground where you're like, we can beat you up if we want.
right. But
Yeah.
it'd be cool to hear more like backstory of them actually doing the trade there, especially for everything going on with the Jade. But tangent.
No, it's
Yeah.
good. No. It's on point. Like we're thinking about the future, right?
And we do know, like from the other article, not a whole lot was elaborated upon with the season, the next season, Living Season 6 or whatever they decide to do, if it's another saga or something. But
They're
they
just gonna
did
call
mention,
it sick. Like it's just gonna be
yes,
sick.
yeah,
That's what it's
there's
gonna
gonna
be.
be
It's gonna be
sick living
sick, mate.
season.
It's gonna be so sick.
But they did confirm that a new map and story set in Cantha are in development. So
Yeah.
we probably won't get more information until we're a little bit into Living Season 1 on that. But they are going to at least start it there. But again, like they could go in any direction on this. And I mean, seeing the storytelling, even just like hearing about the little diversions or stuff like Xandra, your experience, just like killing them in the streets or like all these different things. We talked a little bit about the beginning story last 2 weeks ago, I guess now. Gosh, it's going to be so good. I don't know where they're going to take us, but this expansion took storytelling in Guild Wars 2 to such a different level, and I just want to see them keep growing it and keep, investing in it. So I'm really pumped to see where they start with that. And I'm kind of glad, honestly, that they have like Living Season 1 to give them a little more breathing time. Like, 1, we need it. We just need it for the completion of the game. We need it for the Steam release. It's all really important. It's going to be really fun to go back to. But like 2, this is a huge horizon for them, and of course they don't have to have it all figured out right now. They can use it as a way to do a little bit of an epilogue even in Cantha, but to give themselves a little bit of time to really think about those possibilities and explore where they want to head makes sense to me.
It's interesting to think about. They already know the story for the next 3 or 4 years right now. You know that, because they're already building it. Because they've already got what is going to be something we're going to be talking about very shortly, planned out because they know, you can't just say, "Oh, we're just going to do it." They must have some idea of how they're going to get there. I mean, I remember because my ex-wife used to work for Arena, that you just thinking about processes and stuff, and you're like, yeah, I already know what's going on down there. I'm like, what? Can you tell me? No. You are my wife. Like, what is going on here?
He's like, I'm signing an NDA.
Yeah,
I can't tell you.
like, damn it. There, it stretches. Okay, so I've got on my screen right now, I've got the roadmap. Spring Guild Wars 2
Roadmap.
2022. So I'm just going to quickly go over here and look at this. So End of Dragons continued to read that bit. Then they've just got like Spring 2022 roadmap. End of Dragons. March 15th, End of Dragons Polish build. March 29th, Super Adventure Festival. I can't believe that's back already. Jesus, that thing comes around so quick. End of Dragons Polish build, which I just added. April 19th, Living World, Season 1, Episode 1. April 19th? What? This is less than a month away. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Oh my god, we're not going to have any episodes about A&D.
That's what I was saying. That's what I was
get some
saying.
more going out. Oh my god. Next week we can. Junlai Jade Junkyard Challenge Mode in May 10th, May 24th, Living World Episode 2. So that's a month, so they are going for month by month. But they're doing kind of Overlook Challenge Mode as well as the new Legendary Weapon variant on May 24th. So May 24th is probably the biggest day. Then we've got June 7th, which is going to be Dragon Bash. I wonder if they're going to introduce different things with that. Anyway. First major one after we've bashed all the dragons.
People were like, what do we do with Aurene now? Like,
Yeah. Can't talk about the death of Aurene. Nothing Rook might get upset about that.
The lips dropped.
They
the
did.
eyes grew.
That's true. There was an evil look there I've not seen before.
Who has survived the End of Dragons? Nothing gonna kill her now.
Period.
Knock on wood. She will live forever.
Or she'll go to sleep.
Or she'll
That'll be
take a
fine.
nap. Or we'll die and we won't see the day that she dies. Because she theoretically would outlive us. Although I have some thoughts about being a champion. I have some headcanons, everybody. Like maybe our lifespan is extended. Who knows?
Oh.
Asura's lived longest, probably, so. The same.
Oh. We'll see. I'm very glad they didn't kill her. I really thought they were going to an End of Dragon. So now in my book, she is forever alive. And please don't hurt me, ArenaNet. Please don't hurt me like Krupp hurt Jebro about the Dwarf topic type deal.
That was a wound. That was deep. That was a deep wound. Temple Challenge mode June 7th as well, and then 28th of June, which is big. Balance update and new legendary weapon variant as well. So we've got 2 of those leading up to June 28th. We've got World v World betas and bonus events will be announced once their dates are locked in. Will World v World be coming alliance-wise this year? I don't know. I honestly have no idea.
Nobody knows.
I don't think they know either. I don't think they honestly know because they've still got to fix this stuff. Okay, I'll do future further transmissions and then you lot can fight each other in an arena to decide who wants to announce the last bit. We've made some significant strides over the last year when it comes to communicating to all of you. Studio updates, blogs, live streams, roadmaps, post-mortems and more. It's been very gratifying to see our efforts on this front received so positively by the community. Yes. But we want to do more. Moving forward, we'll be publishing a regular state of the game. So if earlier you remembered, I said, oh, Josh used to do this thing before he started at ArenaNet. It was Guild Wars 2 Guru state of the game. He is now the game director. It's pretty cool. Like, I just think like it was from that period. It's just nice. State of the game is always like a very general thing as well. It was state of the game for PvP back then, but yes, give me all the information. That's good. I want more video. That's what I want. I want more video.
Yeah.
Give me more video. Give me more pictures. Give us more stuff to interact with. Long blog posts don't appeal to a lot of people nowadays. They just don't. We are a less patient
The blogging
people.
culture is gone. They should start a TikTok.
I think they've.
I don't think they have a TikTok.
There was like 3 billion.
The
TikToks
elite
for
spec
games,
ads
so.
could have been great TikToks.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, they did have them on like Instagram.
The thing is, TikTok is a little bit of an issue for lots of communities, and I think they might not want to, because there's a lot of bullying and lots of other stuff that goes on there that is a little bit questionable.
That's the internet.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I was gonna say that is probably in there as well.
That's literally Twitter.
But like,
it's literally Twitter.
TikTok is a little bit different. I can talk about that another time if you want. What else was I reading? Okay, the things. State of the game blog posts to keep you informed, the latest developments, Content of these posts will change with each iteration, but we hope that they become something you look forward to reading and discussing. There's plenty of, yeah, we'll do that. We'll read through it, mate. 4 hours later, we're finished. Who wants to do this last bit?
I can wrap it up, I guess.
Do it.
Go for it.
We have,
You were already getting ready.
I brought out the knuckles. So we have the first.
That's not what the title
Wow,
is.
all right, I'll take over it.
You
Don't worry,
messed it
I've
up.
got it. We've got
the future.
Do you want to do
Wow,
a
I
word
was
each?
so hyped
You want
up.
to do like
Oh my God,
that?
we just like popcorn
Confirm.
back and forth.
Yeah.
So we have the future confirmed. Not can the, but it's the future confirmed. One last update before we go. We're happy to confirm that there will be a 4th expansion for Guild Wars 2. We mean it when we say we're focused on the long term. This is a very early confirmation, the earliest we've ever done, in fact. So don't expect news anytime soon. Expansions take a very long time to develop. Plus, there's plenty of cool things to look forward to between now and then. On behalf of the entire ArenaNet team, thank you for your continued support, and from partners, we thank you as well. We sincerely believe that our best years as a studio are ahead of us. A new beginning that starts with Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons. Talk soon, Amy Cullen, Josh, JT, and the Guild Wars 2 team. Expansion for hype!
Very exciting. We can stop hearing end of development now.
Oh, I know.
Oh my God,
really great.
I still don't understand how people kept saying that. I literally saw people say
They
that
were
last
saying
week.
that, were they? I just
Last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
What?
I wonder.
Yeah.
if the announcement of it in being so early, or if they're even going into it, has anything to do with the reception for End of Dragons. And how good, like, I wonder if they would have ever announced a 4th expansion if End of Dragons didn't, like, double their player base and they didn't get as good of feedback. You know what I mean?
Probably not.
Because a lot of people did say, you know, I think it's going to hinge on whether or not End of Dragons is good if it's end of development. I don't think it was that serious, but I just wonder if any of this really would have been talked about if it wasn't as hyped. You know what I mean?
I agree.
I'm excited.
I went into End of Dragons not necessarily hyped. I was definitely getting excited, especially like the day before. But I went in with the mindset that this has to show Guild Wars 2 in the best light possible, considering their history with, you know, season 4 was really good, but it wasn't really that expansion. It didn't even lead into an expansion. Icebrood Saga ended on a bit of a sour note. So ultimately, End of Dragons had to deliver. And I think that the quality of the expansion was so high that they saw such good reception that they were like, you know what, we can do a 4th expansion. We're definitely already focusing on the long term. We might as well announce, like, hey, yeah, we're doing expansion 4, so stick around. I think it was really smart to do it here. Granted, we didn't get any concept art like we did back with End of Dragons when they were like, here's a picture of Xingzhou province.
I think this is like way earlier than that. I think this is like... There's the drawing board, everyone. Well, no,
they probably have like one concept art piece and they're like, yeah, that's what we're going for. So it's like pre-production.
They're just like, we've made a decision to do this. Although you've got to think, if they're doing it, they've already announced another expansion. You got to think about how many seasons would they potentially have between now and then, and like the previous timeline for that. Because if they've got Living World episodes coming out from next month, you got April, May, June, July, August, then.
They're not doing it.
I think they're doing it monthly.
No, because they're not. It's not. There won't be an episode in June.
Oh,
no, it goes
June,
1,
June,
2.
June. That's true.
I think they'll take a month break, then do 3, 4, do a month break, and then do 5, and then do 6.
As well, right? I guess.
And then do season 6. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So they're definitely taking June break. I thought they were doing it monthly. But you're right. So what? Like, even if we say like earlier September is the end. Even if we just say that, just even if they just take 1 month.
I think the end will be
the
like
end of the year.
October, November.
Yeah.
Okay.
Season 1 should end then. Then season 6 could start end November, early December.
Yeah. And I mean, roughly 2 years is generally about the tempo for other games with their expansions. Like, that hasn't always been the case with Guild Wars 2. And of course, that's kind of unique because Guild Wars 2 also offers a lot more in those living seasons than most MMOs do as far as, you know, patch content between expansions go. They really create almost a miniature expansion experience because you get maps and all kinds of things, and you know, sometimes entirely new like mounts or features that are added to the game. So it's something where I personally feel like, you know, roughly 2 years. They've talked a bit about how it seems like production with End of Dragon, at least just from what I've heard, and please correct me if I'm wrong, like the actual like push of real development with it seems like it was about 2 years. Obviously they were planning longer than that, but so it's one of those things for me where like that would seem comfortable and that would give us, you know, finish this year out living season 1, span of living season 2 next year, see what happened, or living season 6 feasibly next year, like see where that takes us as far as story goes and what that could lead into. I mean, either way, I just have to agree with them. I really do think that if they are able to keep working the way that they are, that statement that our best years are ahead of us, I just love it for so many reasons. I love it for so many reasons because you hear so much about like the peak of the game being Heart of Thorns and stuff like that. And there were a lot of things that were so
not now. That's
no, I know,
not.
but like for a long time you heard that in the community, right? And that it's all been downhill since then. And yet, I think we saw innovation. I think we saw all kinds of qualities in the game that have been so promising and so fantastic. And Kroof, just like you were saying, like this expansion was crucial. Again, I don't think it's necessarily like in a, like you were saying, Xander, like it's not necessarily in a like this would have been the end of all things. But I mean, this 10-year marker for MMOs, I think is something that's pretty massive. Like, is your game getting so outdated you need to look to a future iteration? Is the player base declining? Is it growing?
Yeah.
Are your sales greater than ever? If they can really address the things that need to be addressed, they provided this expansion that I really think does showcase a lot of the absolute best parts of Guild Wars 2. There's a lot of growth still to do. There's a lot of things still to do, but it feels like for the first time we got an expansion where like the vision and the potential of this game was so crystal clear. And I was like, yes, this would be the future. This is the future. If they can keep doing this and if they can keep up with what they're saying, like, I think we're going to find that trust just rebuilding step by step from here on out. And I am like so excited for that because it's like so many people have played this game for so long for a reason and it deserves to shine. It deserves to have this. And I'm honestly just like, I'm so pumped. I'm just so ready.
I was just thinking like, while you were talking about that, like 10 years, I was 30 when I started playing this. I'm 40 now. And it's like, you know, it's like, holy crap. that is a different point. That is a different. Imagine you're both 30 now. Kroof is 21. Okay.
I was 11 when I started playing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's incredible.
That's so good.
And like just like the different.
I was a baby.
The different stages of your life, like going through like an MMORPG, and for that to still appeal to you all those years later when you go through different points of life, and like Kroof, you've been through way more stages in that time. You start to get a little bit slower as you get older, but like it's just it is like, and to still be able to appeal to people and change with the times is amazing. And they've definitely had their pitfalls at times. There's definitely been their moments, but like I think as long as you can come back, that's really, really good. And it does change people's lives, you know. And I'm not going to rattle on about mine and how much it's changed mine, but like it's pretty. I'm excited. This was the good blog post and probably a good place to end actually. But like, just thinking about the future of like, we did a whole podcast and just the blog post again, and not talking about End of Dragons, and we're on season 2, episode 2 of this podcast, and we've talked about all the first map and fishing, and like,
ArenaNet, slow down.
Calm yourself.
Y'all are killing it too much.
Too much content.
You're surging.
Give me a minute. Like I just need to catch up. But like, yeah, next week we'll do some End of Dragons. We'll talk about skiffs. Wait, did we talk about skiffs next time? We're just gonna talk about skiffs. We're gonna talk about the next map.
Zone.
Yeah, no. It's not just gonna be skiffs. I'm joking. But we're gonna
just Detective Rama.
We're gonna talk
take
about
each character at a time.
We'll do second map. We'll talk about skiffs, and we'll talk about some story stuff, loose story stuff, because I want to do like proper story in one go. And also I don't know if I want to do some specific story episodes as well. I'm not sure, but we should talk about the story because it's good. But
we should
by
do
the
a narrative
time
episode.
Well, so we should do a narrative episode. I actually thought we could play the story and talk about an episode. That could be a separate thing, but like, anyway, we'll see. Anyone else want to say anything else before we start to outro?
I'm just excited.
Just excited?
Yep.
That's big. That's
That
good.
part.
That part. Okay, good stuff. Well, that's going to be the end of the Lightbringers podcast. I'm sorry that this wasn't live on Twitch at the time. I'm sad. I believe it's not. We still did the same show. I'm sure it would have been exactly the same. It's just nice to see all the people in chat because I keep looking at chat all the time as well. So it's weird like to do the podcast and not have that interaction. But yeah, I hope you enjoy this wherever or not you're watching and listening on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, all the things. Kroof, tell us what you do, where you do it, and no question.
Oh, damn.
You were excited.
This is what I deserve.
It's been a long one. So
Hi
questions, man.
everybody, I'm Kroof. I do a lot of YouTube stuff. More Guild Wars 2 videos are going to be coming out. I probably will transition to more build stuff and just overall, general gameplay. I also stream on Twitch. I almost said here on Twitch, but we're not live on Twitch. I stream on Twitch Tuesdays through Saturdays. I'm going to be playing Elden Ring now, my very first Souls game, so I'm excited about that.
Oh wow, yeah.
And Am I missing anything? I don't think so.
Twitter, Kroof, what is your actual page on Twitch?
It's Kroof_, and on Twitter it's just at Kroof. I love me a good Twitter. My Twitter, I like it a lot. I have a fun time on Twitter.
You should go and follow Kroof on Twitter. It's a wild time. Just from hiding at ArenaNet to from having a ball cap. I mean, from a ball setting or whatever. It's a wild time. We should do that. Xandri's come back as well. Hello. It's good to see you. Thank you so much for coming back. It's been awesome to have you here. Tell us all the things about your stuff.
Fun.
Sell yourself.
So yeah, I do content full-time as well. Twitch.tv/Xandri. It's 2 I's at the end, not an IL. People used to confuse that all the time. Not so much now. And then on the YouTube, it's Xandri, so TEH Xandri, and the same for the Twitter, which is where I am mostly if I'm not live or posting YouTube content. And I'll be mainly in Guild Wars 2, trying to do all of the things that I didn't do before Season 1 and SAB. I'm very excited for SAB because I didn't get to do as much of it when it came around last year. So that'll be fun. And I'll also be starting SWTOR. So I'm really excited to let you guys know what I think of that.
Yes, that is. They redid all of the starting game, which is cool. Yeah,
I heard that. I heard people weren't like super excited about all of it for everything that they did for like all of the new content, but I haven't looked at it at all, so I'm excited.
It's broken at the moment, yeah. It's not working. But yeah, hopefully soon. Awesome. I'm very glad to have you here. Also, everyone watching and listening, check out everyone's information in the description. I'm going to put a link from everyone from their chosen content that they want you to follow, but then you can go there and you can follow them, all the things, and also from what they've said as well. And last but certainly not least, Rook is here and will tell you where you can find all of their stuff and bits and bobs.
Yes, you can find me everywhere, Rookery. So I'm usually live at least 2 days a week on Twitch. Sometimes you'll catch me in the morning doing stuff, but I'm usually live on my own channel at least 2 days a week. And then I'm live on podcasts. We've got Lightbringers on Friday, obviously. And then on Saturdays, I am a co-host of 8th Right Radio, which is Gamer Escape's Final Fantasy XIV podcast. And then I usually try to get at least one or more YouTube videos up a week. We do everything there from playing through new content. So my End of Dragons playthrough is going to be going up hopefully by Monday. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But you can also find my playthroughs of other content, as well as various other lore-related materials or even covers of some of the songs. And I might have a little something in the works this year for Guild Wars 2, maybe dressed as Casimir, but I will have more news about that sometime soon, so be sure to follow and keep an eye out, because we do a lot of stuff, and it's always great to see you wherever you are. And you can also find me Twitter and also on Instagram. The only difference is that on Twitter I am Rookery_, because I am a thieving stealer, and I am, I'm coasting off of Kroof's brilliance. So, Rookery_.
I invented the underscore.
Yes, you did.
Apparently. Awesome. Pardon me. I've been clearing my throat too much. Okay, awesome. Thank you very much, Rook, as well. Rookery. I'm Jebro. Twitch.tv/Jebro Unity. You can find me on YouTube and Twitter and Instagram, all the things. Anchor is where the podcast is, so that should all be linked in the description. Support me if you want to. I stream the most 3 days a week at the moment. Content creation is still the main way I make money, but is also only 3 days a week because I'm an intern as a mental health counselor. So if you do want to support me in doing all the things, you can subscribe, you can donate, you can join on YouTube, and please do all the same things with these awesome people as well that we've had on the podcast today, including going through their link for buying End of Dragons as well, which I'll ask them for, and I always put at the bottom in the description for the expansion as well, so you can go and purchase through their links if you want to support them or you want to support me, whoever. Just use one of those links. Tell your friends and give them the link as well. Otherwise, we're going to see you next week. I will definitely have a show next week I'm not sure. I mean, like I said before, probably the next map. We've still got loads to talk about on the Lightbringers podcast. Episode 3 next week. Thanks so much for watching. Take care and have a bath if you like them. See you soon.
That was a weird note to go out on, Jeff.
It was, but baths are great. I really like bath. I'm gonna have a bath soon. Like I'm gonna have one later.
Is that a British thing? Because I was talking with Wood of Potatoes the other day, and it was just like all about baths.
Okay, I'm doing an outro, Griff. Give me a second, we can talk about it. Okay, next time on the podcast, episode 3, Lightbringers, season 2, baths, British or not. See you next time.